Chapter 1446. Luo Qingtong's eyes swept across the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. Like an X-ray, she imprinted every inch of the map's texture and hidden lines. However, in the eyes of the crowd, Luo Qingtong was looking down at the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. She looked at it very carefully, almost from top to bottom, scanning every detail. However, the crowd already knew the reason why Luo Qingtong asked Ouyang family head for this map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. They did not feel that this young man's action was abrupt. If Luo Qingtong was just looking at it casually, they would really feel strange in their hearts, okay? This was the psychology of people. They always felt that if you did not check carefully for something that you tried so hard to get, there must be something fishy about it. While everyone was thinking about this, Luo Qingtong calmly imprinted the map of the Ouyang family's Saint King's tomb into her eyes. She closed her eyes slightly and withdrew the bloody light and the topographic pattern of the Saint Monarch's tomb. Then she raised her head and looked in the direction of Ouyang family head. "Thank you for your generosity, Ouyang family head." Luo Qingtong's lips curled into a smile. Wasn't this a generous gift? Ouyang family head was equivalent to giving the entire map of the Saint Monarch's tomb to her. She should thank him. Ouyang family head did not understand the meaning of Luo Qingtong's words. He looked at the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb handed over by Luo Qingtong and raised his hand to take it. Previously he did not seem to care, but in fact, he had been staring at the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb in Luo Qingtong's hands. However, in front of everyone, Luo Qingtong did not do anything. That map of the Saint Monarch's tomb was held in her hands. From the beginning to the end, it had never left their sight. It was impossible to do anything to it. Ouyang family head was very relieved. After taking the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb, he looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "Yi Jiu, this map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. You have seen it. Now you should take out the map in your hand. Let's combine the maps together and show the corresponding route, right?" Ouyang family head's face was cold. The map of the Saint Monarch's tomb that belonged to family who was not snatched from Luo Qingtong's hands, which made him feel very depressed in his heart. However, the saint's tomb had to be explored. It was impossible to not cooperate with the other party just because the map was in Luo Qingtong's hands. What's the hurry? Luo Qingtong's eyes' lips. Hatsie's tomb. Tombs Lu's tombs was already she had collected all the maps. Tomb, San the monarch, tombs. SSS. This was... Later, Hua family head and the others would know what it meant to regret. "I'm going to sell the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb in my hands. I wonder if anyone wants to buy it?" Luo Qingtong's words were shocking. Everyone was waiting for her to take out the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb and combine it with the Ouyang family heads. In this way, the route would be revealed. They could also gather people and explore the Saint Monarch's tomb with Luo Qingtong and the Ouyang family's people. Chapter 1447. Everyone was suddenly surprised. Was this Yi Jiu crazy? Why did he suddenly say such a thing? Previously, Clan Head Hua and the others had tried every means to get their hands on the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb, but they failed to get it. In the end, they were slapped in the face again and again. Now, she actually took the initiative to sell it? How stupid was it for Clan Head Hua and the others to send themselves to be slapped in the face? The crowd thought so and suddenly looked at Clan Head Hua and the others who were not far away with a strange expression. Among them were the clan heads of the top clans. At this moment, they all looked at Luo Qingtong in disbelief and could not react for a long time. Ninth young master, do you really want to sell the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb in your hand? Since you said it, you will never go back on your words? A clan head of a top clan came back to his senses and immediately asked impatiently. Of course. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent as she nodded and said, "As long as you can afford to pay a price that satisfies me, this map of the Saint Monarch's tomb is yours." As soon as she said this, in an instant, the clan heads of the top clans who originally did not have any hope of getting the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb went crazy. However, they still retained a trace of rationality. A clan head of a top clan looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with a vigilant expression and said, "This map of the Saint Monarch's tomb is related to the harvest in the Saint Monarch's tomb. There is a huge difference between having a map and not having one. Why do you want to give this map to us? As soon as this clan head of a top clan spoke, in an instant, the other clan heads of the top clans also looked in Luo Qingtong's direction. The question in the clan head's heart was also in the minds of the rest of the top clans. To be able to sit in his current position, none of the people present were truly stupid or foolish. At this moment, in the face of Luo Qingtong's behavior, which was like a pie falling from the sky, the clan heads of the top clans were full of doubts. They really wanted the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb very much. However, this did not mean that they knew that there might be a trap ahead and would jump into it. How could a map of the Saint Monarch's tomb be more important than their respective clans? If Luo Qingtong could not clearly explain the reason, they would not even touch the map of the Saint King's tomb, even if it was right in front of them. They had just conspired with the Hua family head, and ended up being slapped in the face by Luo Qingtong. The scene of them almost not being able to explore the Saint King's tomb was still vivid in their minds. How could they still take Luo Qingtong's unusual action lightly? You don't have to be so nervous. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly as she looked at them, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. The reason why I took out this map is because, she glanced at Yu Huang. We have another map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. Yu Huang's lips twitched. Tong Tong, can you be any more deceitful? How could it be like this? You obviously have a copy in your hands, but you just had to say that I have a copy. Too treacherous. However, although Yu Huang muttered in his heart, he still took out the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb in his hands. Chapter 1448. My map of the Sage Monarch's tomb. Yu Huang was in tears. Opposite him, the patriarchs of the top clans were stunned. They were not the only ones. The other clans were the same. This included the Ouyang and Hua clans. Yi Jiao and the others have another map of the Sage Monarch's tomb? Looking at the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb in Yu Huang's hands, Patriarch Hua and the others instantly beat their chests and stomped their feet. If he had known that Luo Qingtong had more than one map of the Sage Monarch's tomb, he would not have been so anxious and troubled. With one map of the Sage Monarch's tomb, Luo Qingtong could have sold the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb to family who. No wonder she said she wanted to sell it. If they had not been so aggressive, she might have already put the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb up for sale. If that was the case, why did they have to put themselves in such a difficult situation? They even had such a deep feud with her. Now he did not know if he would have the opportunity to bid for the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb. Patriarch Hua's intestines were about to turn green with regret. As for the other patriarchs of the top families, they couldn't wait to call out their bids. We want to buy the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb. The Gua clan is willing to pay 10% of our annual resources. The Gua clan is willing to pay 10% of our harvest in the Western Wilderness this year to bid for the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb. The Lu clan is willing to pay 20%, 30%, plus the alliance with the 9th Young Lord. This was Patriarch Wang's offer. The patriarchs of the top clans were competing for the map. In this Sage Monarch's tomb conference, only they had the wealth and qualifications to compete with each other. Just as their voices were getting louder and louder, the Hua clan's patriarch's voice suddenly rang out. The Hua clan will pay half of the annual resources. Not only that, the Hua clan will also pay 10% of the next year's harvest to family who. As Patriarch Hua's voice rang out, everyone's eyes instantly focused on him. The Hua clan also came to bid for the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb. The faces of the patriarchs of the top clans, who were shouting happily, turned ugly. The Hua clan's strength was above theirs. In particular, his foundation was much deeper than theirs. The moment the other party opened his mouth, it meant that they basically had no chance. With such thoughts in mind, how could the patriarchs of the top clans be willing? Previously, it was Patriarch Hua who led them against Luo Qingtong and the others, causing them to almost lose the opportunity to enter the Saint Monarch's tomb. Now the other party had come to compete with them. Does this Hua clan head have any shame at all? He had done everything possible to deal with Yi Jiao and the others, yet he still had the nerve to participate in the auction of the Saint Monarch's tomb map? Even the outermost walls of Savage City, which were strong enough to withstand the attacks of adult saint beasts, were not as thick as his skin. The Wang family head snorted coldly. Hua family head, I'm afraid you've forgotten how you dealt with ninth young master Yi just now. How dare you bid for the map of the sage monarch's tomb? The Hua clan really has a good upbringing. You're so shameless now that you can't get it. The Wang clan's strength was inferior to the Hua clan's, so they were not afraid of Patriarch Hua. On the contrary, if they could get the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb that Luo Qingtong sold, and gain something in the Saint Monarch's tomb, the Wang clan would be able to shake off the Hua clan in minutes. At that time, who knew who would be groveling in front of whom? Chapter 1449. Patriarch Wang's words instantly angered Patriarch Hua. When he went to Patriarch Wang to cooperate, who was the one who was so excited to agree? Now he was saying that the Hua family was shameless. Patriarch Hua gritted his teeth. He looked at the group of cold-faced family heads who were eager to kick him out of this auction and said coldly, "Don't worry, I'm not going to give you a chance." This auction was originally held at the Sage Monarch's Tomb Convention. Naturally, everyone can participate. Besides, if Patriarch Hua wants to deal with Yi Jiao, can't you do the same? If you want us to not participate, that's fine too. All of you can't participate. Otherwise, the Hua family won't accept it. Patriarch Hua's voice was cold. He then turned to Patriarch Ouyang and said, Patriarch Ouyang, as the person who organized the Sage Monarch's Tomb Convention, you are also the leader of the top forces in Wildland City. Tell me, am I right? Patriarch Hua was also afraid that Luo Qingtong would not let them participate in the auction, so he immediately took the initiative to strike first. After saying this, he immediately sent a voice transmission to Patriarch Ouyang. Patriarch Ouyang, please help me. If our Hua family obtains the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb, we are willing to share half of the loot with the Ouyang family. Not only that, Patriarch Ouyang, the common enemy of our two families is Yi Jiao. The enmity between our Hua family and him is irreconcilable. I believe the same is true for your Ouyang family. If that's the case, why don't the Ouyang family help us? Consider it a lesson for Yi Jiao. In the Sage Monarch's tomb, our two families can also help each other deal with Yi Jiao. Patriarch Ouyang's eyes flashed when he heard Patriarch Hua's voice transmission. He looked at Luo Qingtong and the others and said, Patriarch Hua is right. In this Sage Monarch's Tomb Convention, everyone is treated equally. Ninth young lord, if you take out the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb for sale, our Ouyang family should have no say in who you want to sell it to. However, this Sage Monarch's Tomb Convention is organized by our Ouyang family. Ninth young lord, if you are too biased, our Ouyang family won't be able to answer to everyone. How about this? Ninth young lord, it's fine if you don't want the Hua clan to participate in the auction, but the other top clans can't participate either. Why don't we let the remaining families compete? What do you think? Ouyang family head's words were extremely obvious. That was, Luo Qingtong could not allow the Hua clan to participate in the auction of the Saint Monarch's tomb map. But at the same time, other people who had also offended Luo Qingtong's top families couldn't participate. Only the remaining families could participate. However, excluding the top families with strong backgrounds, Luo Qingtong's map of the Sage Monarch's tomb couldn't be sold at a high price. Ouyang family head's words seemed to be impartial, but in fact, they were full of threats. If Luo Qingtong agreed, then the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb in her hands would be sold at a cheap price. Ouyang family head was confident that Luo Qingtong would not make such a choice. Of course, if the other party really wanted to make such a choice, that was fine too. Selling the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb at a cheap price had caused Luo Qingtong to suffer a huge loss. Chapter 1450. As soon as Ouyang family had said this, in an instant, Luo Qingtong's people and those from the top clans all cursed him in their hearts for being shameless. Especially those from the top clans. They had already made up their minds to take advantage of this auction. The Hua family would not be able to participate in this auction to get the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. They did not expect Ouyang family head to intervene at this time and help the Hua family. If Luo Qingtong was really willing to take a gamble and not let the Hua family participate, then these people would have no chance to participate in the auction. While this group of people was about to go crazy with anger, The remaining people from the top clans were wild with joy. For these people, this was a complete surprise, a pie that fell from the sky. This was really a surprise. If Luo Qingtong really did not allow the Hua family to participate, then these people would have a chance to bid for the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. Thinking of this, the crowd suddenly looked at Luo Qingtong with excitement. The latter raised her eyebrows slightly. She looked at the Hua family head and Ouyang family head who were looking at her with a cold and proud face, then smiled and nodded, saying, "Okay." Luo Qingtong's expression was very indifferent. She tapped her fingers on the long table in front of her, and looked at the Ouyang family head and Hua family head with a meaningful look in her eyes. The Hua family can participate in this auction of the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. I will not stop them. As soon as Luo Qingtong said this, the people from the top clans instantly showed a look of disappointment on their faces. The family heads of the top clans, on the other hand, were greatly relieved. Fortunately, Luo Qingtong was not so short-sighted to the point of refusing the Hua family. However, when they thought of the Hua family participating in the auction of the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb, they could not help but feel stifled in their hearts. In short, no matter what decision Luo Qingtong made, it would be very disadvantageous for them. And all of this was because of the Ouyang family. The other party actually sided with the Hua family and threatened Luo Qingtong by not allowing them to participate in the auction. Otherwise, how could the Hua family have a chance to compete with them? As the crowd thought of this, they were extremely dissatisfied with the Ouyang family head. It was the same for the Hua clan who had shamelessly competed with them for the map of the sage monarch's tomb. A group of people from the top families gathered together and automatically excluded the Hua and Ouyang families. This auction instantly divided them into two factions. The Hua family head and the Ouyang family head were on one side, while the other family heads were gathered on the other side. There was a clear distinction between the two sides. Luo Qingtong looked at this scene with a smile on her face. However, I don't want any resources in this auction. I only want your businesses. I'll sell a map of the sage monarch's tomb to whoever can offer the most valuable assets. As Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, in an instant, the faces of the people around her were shocked. There was no other reason. If the resources were given to Luo Qingtong, these families could obtain them again. However, if the assets were to be given to Luo Qingtong, then the strength of their families in the future would rapidly shrink. Especially the assets in the wilderness city, there was a fixed number. This Yijio's appetite was huge. Chapter 1451. As the crowd thought so, they all looked at Luo Qingtong in bewilderment. The latter was not in a hurry and just waited for the Hua family head's reply. The Hua family agrees. When the Hua family head heard Luo Qingtong say that she wanted to compete with their businesses, his face was full of shock. But soon, he gritted his teeth and agreed. For no other reason, Luo Qingtong must have said this to force them to back off. He would never be fooled. What's more, they would give them their businesses. After they entered the Saint King's tomb and gained something, they would definitely make Luo Qingtong and the others suffer. At that time, it was still uncertain whether they could leave the Saint King's tomb alive. So what if they took their businesses? As the Hua family had thought so, he instantly looked at Luo Qingtong with a cold gaze and nodded in agreement. He was the first to speak. The other family heads of the top families were still a little hesitant. Now that the Hua family head had agreed first, and if they did not agree, then this map of the Saint King's tomb would be his. How could the family heads of the top families be willing? Immediately, they nodded in agreement. Even if they could not get the map of the Saint King's tomb in the end, they would not let the Hua family get away with it so easily. The crowd snorted coldly and agreed. After they all agreed, Luo Qingtong nodded indifferently. Good. In that case, you can start the auction now. At the base of 10% of your businesses. Of course, the 10% of your businesses I'm talking about are your businesses in the Wild City, and those in other places are not included. Don't think you can get away with it. In addition, I will entrust the people of the Dark Color Arena to help me collect these businesses. Don't even think about scheming against me. Luo Qingtong's voice was indifferent. As soon as she said this, Several family heads of the top families who were thinking of using the worthless businesses in other remote cities and wild wastelands to make up the numbers suddenly put away their crooked thoughts and began bidding. The crowd cautiously increased the price. After all, this was their business, not a resource that they had obtained. If it was resources, of course, they could call it whatever they wanted. As a top family clan, they naturally had abundant resources. But when it came to property, he had to be more careful. After losing too many properties, their status as a top-tier family was no longer guaranteed. After all, their assets were their foundation. This was also the reason why their family could become a top-tier family. However, no matter how leisurely they bid, the few families competed together. Soon, the price was close to 50% of the property. This was almost half of the foundation of these top clans. At this point, almost none of the patriarchs of the top clans continued to bid. The person who offered this price was someone from the Wang clan. At this moment, the Wang family head was gritting his teeth as he looked at the people from the top families around him. He wanted to see who could offer a higher price than him. Any higher, and it would exceed the bottom line of these top clans. After all, losing more than half of their assets was enough to cause their family's rank to drop. With every 10% increase, the strength of their clans would plummet. The Wang family head was the first to call out a 50% price. Basically, victory was already in his hands. The Hor family head's face twitched violently. Just as he was about to call out a 50% price, the Wang family head took the initiative. Now, if he wanted to get the map of the sage monarch's tomb, he would have to bid higher. Thinking of this, he felt a wave of heartache. Chapter 1452. Luo Qingtong's voice rang out. "All right. There's something I need to tell you." Luo Qingtong smiled and said to the crowd, "If your assets are not enough or exceed the expected bottom line, you can borrow from others." "I'm willing to accept." Luo Qingtong's voice was indifferent. In an instant, Patriarch Hu's eyes narrowed. They could borrow from others? Then Patriarch Wang and the others, could they buy the map of the Saint King's tomb? Patriarch Hu was anxious at the thought of this. If that was the case, he would not be able to obtain the map if they joined forces. He thought about how he had offended all the top families in order to get the map of the Saint King's tomb. If he did not get anything in the end, Patriarch Hu was afraid that he would go crazy. No. He must get the map of the Saint King's tomb. 80%. We the Hu family will give you 80% of the assets. Patriarch Hu roared out these words through gritted teeth. Everyone was still immersed in Luo Qingtong's words, and did not know what she meant. Patriarch Hu's voice rang out. In an instant, the crowd was shocked by his bid. 80%. Was Patriarch Hu crazy? He increased the price by 30%. This was 2/3 of the entire Hu family's assets. If the Hu family took out these assets, their strength would immediately fall to that of an intermediate family. Just for a map of the Saint King's tomb that he did not know what he would get in the end, and whether it would be enough to offset the price he had paid. Everyone present looked at the crazy Patriarch Hu, as if they were looking at a lunatic. The latter did not care about others' gazes. 80%. Patriarch Hu's eyes were bloodshot. Who else is following? Patriarch Hu's heart was bleeding as if it had been stabbed countless times by someone. The Hu family had almost given up all their assets for 80% of their assets. Did these people think that he would not be heartbroken? However, he would leave these businesses to Luo Qingtong and the others for the time being. When he obtained the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb and explored it, he wanted to Luo Qingtong and the others to not be able to walk out of the tomb. Patriarch Hu's heart was filled with killing intent. He looked coldly in the direction of Luo Qingtong and said coldly, "Yi Jiao. 9th young master. Start counting." 80%. Even if the Wang family wanted to borrow from others to suppress him, there wasn't enough time to discuss it with others. He was definitely going to win this auction. The Hu family head's heart was filled with pride. He endured the pain in his heart, and looked at Luo Qingtong provocatively. She wanted him to lose the map of the Saint King's tomb? Dream on. He was determined to get the map of the Saint King's tomb. Luo Qingtong looked at the Hu family head's provocative eyes and laughed. "There's no need to count anymore. Hu family head, you've won." Luo Qingtong's words just now were deliberately said for Patriarch Hua to hear. Otherwise, why didn't she say it earlier or later? Why did she say it when Patriarch Hua was about to bid 60%? Others did not know what number Patriarch Hua was about to call, but Luo Qingtong could read lips. She could tell what price Patriarch Hua was going to bid. If Luo Qingtong did not speak, Patriarch Hua would have won the auction with 60% of the price. Chapter 1453. He would have to pay an additional 20% of his assets. Congratulations, Patriarch Hua. This map of the Saint King's tomb is now yours. Luo Qingtong said as she threw the map of the Saint King's tomb in her hand to Patriarch Hua. Patriarch Hua thought that he had seen through Luo Qingtong's scheme and successfully obtained the map of the Saint King's tomb. Now that he heard Luo Qingtong's words, the smug and provocative smile on his face instantly stiffened. You did it on purpose. Patriarch Hua was about to vomit blood. He looked at Luo Qingtong's smiling expression, and then looked at the expressions of the people around him who were looking at him like a fool. He was so angry that he was about to have a cerebral hemorrhage. Luo Qingtong's words just now were deliberately said for him to hear, and he actually fell for it. The Hua family head's hand trembled as he held the map of the Saint King's tomb. He pointed at Luo Qingtong with his other hand, and did not know what to say. He gritted his teeth so hard that they creaked. He finally came to his senses. If he had insisted on bidding 60% just now, even if the people of the Wang family could borrow from others, they might not be willing to follow up. After all, if he had bid more than 50%, even if he had obtained the map of the Saint King's tomb, the price he had to pay was too high. If it wasn't for the fact that the Hua clan already had a death feud with Luo Qingtong and had a falling out with the other top clans, they wouldn't have been so desperate to sell the map of the Saint King's tomb. He had been cheated by this Yi Jiao again. Patriarch Hua's teeth were clenched. He suddenly reacted and looked at Luo Qingtong as if he wanted to eat her alive. As for the rest of the people, after being confused at the beginning, they instantly understood the crux of the matter when they heard the Hua family head's words. No wonder the Hua family's patriarch suddenly called out such a high price. From 50% to 80%, they all thought he was crazy. He didn't expect that because of Luo Qingtong's words just now, he was afraid that the Wang family and the other top families would join forces to prevent him from bidding for the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. That was why he suddenly raised the price so high. The Hua family head's reaction was extremely fast. Unfortunately, he was tricked by Yi Jiao. With this thought in mind, everyone was shocked by Luo Qingtong's quick thinking and meticulous thinking. The young man advanced step by step, and actually set up a huge trap for the Hua family head in an instant. Before she spoke, and even after she spoke, they were still somewhat unable to react. The other party's grasp of the Hua family's patriarch's personality and temperament was simply perfect. The words that made the Hua family head change his mind and call out 80% of the bid was just right. If it was too early, the Hua family head might not be fooled. But if it was too late, the matter would be a foregone conclusion. Luo Qingtong would not be able to get any benefits from it. Only at that time, and with an accurate grasp of the Hua family head's mentality, could she succeed. Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong in amazement. The latter's expression was indifferent. Patriarch Hua, thank you for your generosity. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she asked someone to deliver a property deed to the Hua family head. The bright red 80% written on it made the Hua family head's eyes bloodshot. He almost wanted to tear this property deed to shreds and announce that this transaction was not valid. Chapter 1454. The people from the Dark Colors arena were eyeing them covetously from the side. Luo Qingtong had used the guest elder token just for this matter of the Sage Monarch's Tomb Conference. These people naturally had to handle this matter beautifully and properly for the other party. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a disgrace to the Dark Colors arena's reputation? In the future, who would be willing to value the guest elder token of the Dark Colors arena? Patriarch Hua, please. Chief Steward Chung, who had been silent all this while, spoke at this moment. As soon as he spoke, no matter how unwilling Patriarch Hua was, he had no choice but to sign this property deed. After all, under the watchful eyes of so many people, He had called out the 80% price and urged Luo Qingtong to hurry up and announce that he had won the bid. There was no room for quibbling at all. If he dared to go back on his word, the people from the Dark Colors Arena had the right to enforce it. At that time, the Hua family would be the ones losing face. And because of this, they would have to go against the people from the Dark Colors Arena. The gains did not make up for the losses. As Patriarch Hua thought of this, he almost broke the pen in his hand. Swish, swish, swish. He gritted his teeth and quickly signed the deed. Here you go. He threw the deed onto the table in front of Luo Qingtong fiercely. This Yijiu better not be complacent. Sooner or later, he would take back all these properties from her in the sage monarch's tomb. At that time, he would make her pay back all the humiliation she had inflicted on the Hua family 1,000 times over. Patriarch Hua was panting with anger. He looked like an enraged fighting bull as he stared fiercely at Luo Qingtong. The latter didn't care at all. In this life and her previous life, there were many people who hated her and wanted her life. Who was Patriarch Hua to her? Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She picked up the contract and glanced at the Hua family head's signature. Then, she tapped the table and looked at Hu Zhongtian and the others who were not far away from her. Family who? Is your family who willing to swear a heavenly oath to be loyal to me? As Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, the surrounding people suddenly understood. As expected, Yijiu came to the Hua family's business to pave the way for family who? The people from family who were really lucky. They actually got themselves such a great god. Other things aside, Yijiu was able to invite the king of the southern region and the people from the Dark Colors Arena. Family whose people were really lucky to be able to get her help. If it weren't for Yijiu, even if family who was lucky enough to escape the Bai family's scheme, they wouldn't have been able to escape the fight for the map of the sage monarch's tomb. If it weren't for Yijiu, family whose entire family would have been wiped out the moment the map of the sage monarch's tomb was exposed. Which of the many families present was kind? Especially those top families who had stepped on the bodies of many other families to get to where they were. It was even more impossible for them to have the slightest bit of compassion. Didn't the Hua family snatch the map of the sage monarch's tomb? They were only defeated by Yu Huang, who was invited by Yijiu. Otherwise, family whose people would have been wiped out a long time ago. As the crowd thought this, they suddenly looked at family whose people with envy. Chapter 1455. After surviving a great disaster, one was bound for good fortune. Not only did they rely on Yijiu to avoid a calamity that almost wiped out their entire clan, but they were also able to obtain such a great fortune. 80% of the top-notch clan's property. And it was the Hua clan's property, which was considered one of the best among the top-notch clans. As long as family who obtained this property deed, they would immediately be able to leap from being at the bottom of the middle-rank clans to being comparable to the top-notch clans. This fortune was something that countless middle-ranked clans might not be able to achieve even if they spent 100 years and possessed good luck and opportunity. But now, family who had achieved it so easily. Countless clans below the top-notch clans looked at the property deed in Luo Qingtong's hands with envy. If this property deed was given to them, they would immediately make a heavenly oath without hesitation and acknowledge Luo Qingtong as their master. After all, everyone knew the weight and value of 80% of the clan's property. Unfortunately, they did not have the luck. The crowd looked at Hu Zhongtian and the others with envy and jealousy. However, the latter and the others were still in a daze. What did ninth young master mean by this? Was she going to give this property deed that represented 80% of the Hua clan's property to family Hu? Hu Zhongtian, Hu Fei, and the rest of family who were all stunned. Only Hu Yinyang and Chu Lingfeng were so happy that they could not control themselves. Chu Lingfeng's thoughts were simple, so he did not think too much. He only felt that it was great that his grandfather and uncle could work for his master with him and his mother. Hu Yinyang was so happy that she cried. No one knew better than her what Luo Qingtong's words meant. The young lady had risen from the Blackfield subcity of Eastern Fence Country. She had shocked the world with her first demonstration of her talent. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye's name was known by everyone in the 4 regions of heavenly evolution. She also had the Black Field as her backing. That supremacy of the Black Field was so devoted to her master. If family Hu could be accepted by Luo Qingtong, then the far west wilderness would definitely not be the end of their development. To the Hu family, this was absolutely a massive lucky chance. Father, big brother. Hu Yinyang couldn't help but cry out. Hu Zhongtian and Hu Fei immediately snapped out of their daze. They looked at the excited Hu Yinyang and Chu Lingfeng, and then looked at Luo Qingtong, who had an indifferent expression. They immediately cupped their fists and knelt down, saying, "We are willing." Hu Zhongtian, Hu Fei, and the others didn't know Luo Qingtong's identity. However, their entire family was saved by Luo Qingtong, not to mention that Luo Qingtong had reunited their family. At this moment, Hu Zhongtian had his son and daughter by his side. Family who was on the brink of extinction, was also revived. Such great kindness. Not to mention that Luo Qingtong only wanted them to pledge their loyalty. Even if she asked them to use the lives of family who in exchange for her safety, they wouldn't even blink an eye. They had received too much kindness from Luo Qingtong, and they were only willing to repay it with their lives. Hu Zhongtian, Hu Fei, is willing to swear a heavenly oath to pledge loyalty to the ninth young master. Luo Qingtong looked at Hu Zhongtian and his son, who were half kneeling on the ground with cupped fists. She smiled and moved her lips slightly. Her words were sent into their ears by a special sound wave. "My name is Luo Qingtong. You can also swear on my other name, Evil Dr. Ghost Eye." As Luo Qingtong's voice entered their ears, Hu Zhongtian and his son suddenly raised their heads and looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with shock and excitement. Chapter 1456. Hu Zhongtian and his son did not have much of an impression of the name Luo Qingtong. But even Hu Fei, who had just regained consciousness, had heard of the name, Evil Physician Gui Tong. He was the future of the Blackfield, and a genius alchemist. His abilities were far beyond that of an average alchemist. More importantly, although he was a man, he was able to make the supreme martial artist of the Blackfield fall in love with him. Such a young man was actually the Yi Jiu in front of them. Hu Zhongtian and the rest were shocked. Soon they thought of another problem. It was rumored that there was a shopkeeper Yan by evil physician Gui Tong's side, who helped him manage many matters in the Blackfield mansion. This shopkeeper Yan. The two of them could not help but look at Hu Yinyang, who was standing next to them. The latter smiled with tears in her eyes as she looked at the questions in their eyes and nodded gently at them. "Yes, that's right, Father, big brother, I am shopkeeper Yan of the Blackfield. I am in charge of all matters in the Blackfield for evil physician Gui Tong." Hu Yinyang's gaze and performance clearly told them this. Hu Zhongtian and Hu Fei were hit by a huge sense of surprise and happiness in an instant. Especially Hu Zhongtian. He had always felt guilty towards Yinyang, and did not dare to ask her how she was doing outside, what she had been doing all these years, or who Yi Jiu was. Now he knew all about it. His daughter was shopkeeper Yan, who had a high status in the Blackfield. No wonder Yinyang was so dignified when she returned this time. It was no wonder that she respected Yi Jiu so much. Ha ha ha. Under the puzzled gazes of the crowd, Hu Zhongtian suddenly laughed and then knelt down heavily on his other leg. He knelt down on both knees and kowtowed heavily to Luo Qingtong. Family Hu Zhongtian pays his respects to master. His voice was filled with joy and reverence, and at the same time, with deep gratitude. He was grateful to Luo Qingtong for saving his daughter, so that she would not have to wander around outside and die. He even gave her such glory. "Thank you, Master, for taking care of our family who will never be able to repay your kindness. In the future, I will serve you with my life. Anyone who violates this will be punished by heaven and earth. Heaven and earth will punish him." Following Hu Zhongtian's words, the voices of Hu Fei and the others were also heard. As they swore their oaths to heaven and earth, there was a boom in an instant, and the clear sky was like a thunderbolt. The heavenly Tao accepts the oath. In the future, if anyone from family who disobeyed Luo Qingtong's orders and was disloyal to her, they would immediately fulfill their oath and be punished by the heavens. As soon as this oath was made, everyone in the 4 seats was very surprised. Not because of anything else, but because the people from family who had made the highest vow to heaven and earth. Not only that, they even sold themselves to Luo Qingtong. In the future, He could only listen to the other party's orders, and could not disobey in the slightest. Everyone had originally thought that they would only swear loyalty to their businesses, and would still maintain their independence in other areas. Who would have thought that the people from family who would make such a vow the moment they opened their mouths? Were the people from family who crazy? Even if Yi Jiu had saved them and given them such an opportunity, there was no need for them to sell their entire lives to him. The families from Wild City were in disbelief, and could not understand the thoughts of the people from family who. Chapter 1457. Other people, even if they knew Luo Qingtong's identity, wanted to be like Hu Zhongtian and the others, but Luo Qingtong might not accept them. The reason why she accepted family whose people was mostly because of Hu Yinyang and Chu Lingfeng. Moreover, Luo Qingtong's 80% share of the Hua family's property really needed someone to take care of it. Luo Qingtong originally wanted to help Su Yu and the others gain a foothold in Wild City. But with 80% of the Hua family's property in her hands, she changed her mind. Su Yu and the others had already received the resources from the Bai family and the Voodoo sect. If they also received 80% of the Hua family's property, they would not be able to swallow it all in a short period of time. Moreover, the Hua family's property was deeply rooted in Wild City. If a family like family who already had a foothold in Wild City, obtained it, it would not cause too much of a backlash. But if a new power suddenly appeared and obtained it, it would inevitably attract the attention of many families in Wild City. At that time, everyone would know that heavenly diabolism was her power. For example, the Ouyang family and the others would definitely do their best to deal with them. This would be disadvantageous to Su Yu and the others, and was not Luo Qingtong's original intention. Therefore, it was best for family whose people to take over. Family who was originally an old family in Wild City, and they had their own connections. They were also not unfamiliar with the Hua family's property. Not only would it be easy to take over, it would also not attract too much attention and backlash. With heavenly diabolism's people, one in the light and one in the dark, it could not be better. In the future, she wanted the entire Far West Desolate region to be her world. In the Sky Spill 4 regions, only the Far West Desolate region did not have a unified power. It was just right for Luo Qingtong to establish and expand her own power. She wanted her name to be mentioned in the Sky Spill continent, no longer as the Blackfield's evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Instead, she would be the master of the Far West Desolate region, Evil Eye. Yi Qianxian was the Eastern Domain's supreme, and she wanted to be the Western Domain's demon lord. He swore that he would stand by his side openly and fight against him as an equal. No one in the world could say anything about it. In her entire life, Luo Qingtong had never been willing to be under anyone. Even if she was facing the man she fancied, it was still the same. Moreover, the Huas had once humiliated Hu Yinyang by handing over 80% of their assets to the family who to manage. This was a huge gift from her to Hu Yinyang, so that she could properly vent her anger. Good. Since you are willing to recognize me as your master, then this is a gift from me to you. Also, here are 10 sets of pills that I obtained from the Blackfield's evil Dr. Ghost Eye. They can help you clear out the accumulated diseases in your body and temporarily restore you to your peak state, so that you can break through to a higher realm. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she took out the 10 sets of medicinal pills and threw them to Hu Zhongtian, along with the 80% contract. The latter's hands were trembling as he took the 10 bottles of pills and the deed of termination. 10 bottles of pills? They could clear out the accumulated diseases in their body and temporarily restore them to their peak state, so that they could break through to a higher realm. No one didn't know what these pills represented. It had to be known that for a martial artist of his age, when he tried to break through to a new realm, the biggest obstacle was his own lack of strength. Sometimes, even though his comprehension of the realm had reached a certain level, there was no way for him to break through the shackles and enter a new realm. This was because there were too many diseases in his body. Chapter 1458. Needless to say, they were at their peak condition. Many of the strong practitioners present had already reached a certain age. Even if they were to attempt to break through to a new realm, it would still be incomparable to when they were in their prime. In addition to the influence of the heavy illness in their bodies, it was almost impossible for them to successfully break through to a new realm. Not to mention others, just the Ouyang family head and the rest had been stagnant for many years. But now, the 10 bottles of pills that Luo Qingtong had taken out had perfectly solved this problem. If there were no accidents, as long as Hu Zhongtian and the rest realms had reached a level where they could break through, they would be able to borrow the power of these pills to fiercely raise their powers by another level. It could be seen how powerful and precious these pills were. The crowd looked at the pill bottles in Hu Zhongtian's hands with burning gazes. Yi Jiu actually had such miraculous pills in his hands? This was simply too tempting. Even that Chief Steward Cheng's gaze towards Luo Qingtong also changed slightly. Other than having a relationship with Yu Sihuang, the king of the southern mountain range, this young man actually had a relationship with the Blackfield's evil Dr. Gui Tong? Just like these pills that the other party had taken out, it was almost impossible for outsiders to obtain them. Yet Luo Qingtong had taken out 10 bottles with just a lift of her hand. The other party's relationship with that evil Dr. Gui Tong was definitely not shallow. They didn't know what her identity was. Even with their Dark Colors Arena's ability, they actually couldn't find out anything about her background. So when Luo Qingtong had brought that guest token to their doorstep, the Dark Colors Arena had already sent people to investigate her identity. However, they couldn't find out anything. The young man's identity, whether it was the people from family, Hu or those from the southern mountain range, they couldn't find out anything. And Hu Yenyang, Yu Sihuang and the rest who seemed to know Luo Qingtong's identity, didn't mention a single word. The people from the Dark Colors Arena couldn't do anything at that moment. The young man seemed to have suddenly appeared from this world. Originally, Chief Steward Cheng had suspected that Luo Qingtong's medical skills were extraordinary, and she was also a youth. Could she be the evil Dr. Ghost Eye from the Black Field? But at this moment Luo Qingtong took out those 10 bottles of medicinal pills. Her open and aboveboard action dispelled the doubts in his heart. If the other party was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, he would not have done something so obvious and exposed his identity. After all, that evil Dr. Ghost Eye's medicinal pill was not so easy to obtain. The people from the Dark Colors Arena had also sent people to request for medicinal pills. They had to queue for several months before it was their turn. However, the other party's medical skills were indeed very high. Disregarding everything else, just the pills refined by evil Dr. Gui Tong were all perfect grade pills. As long as the medicinal herbs were sufficient, the medicinal strength of the pills refined by the other party would definitely be the highest. There was almost no loss of medicinal properties. No one knew how she did it. But ever since they had seen the pills refined by her, the people from the Dark Colors Arena no longer doubted the other party's pill refining ability. At the very least, the pills that the Dark Colors Arena customized, even if it was refined by a pill master, would not contain more than 60% of the medicinal strength. The first time they had asked evil Dr. Ghost Eye to help refine pills, they were already shocked by the level of the pills refined by the other party. But it was a pity that it was too difficult to ask the other party for help. Chapter 1459. Up until now, no one knew just what her status was. Otherwise, she feared that this would set off an extremely powerful shock throughout the entire Sky Spill continent. Even where they were, the revelation of the other party's identity would cause a great commotion. After all, there were already many people who had begun to notice her. Ninth Young Master and evil Dr. Ghost Eye are friends? Chief Steward Cheng asked as he tapped his finger on the table. I guess so. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She raised her hand and handed 2 bottles of pills to Chief Steward Cheng. These 2 bottles of pills have the same medicinal effect as the previous 10 bottles. Many thanks to the Dark Color Arena for helping us this time. When family Hu starts to take over the 80% of the business, I hope that the Dark Color Arena will do its best. Luo Qingtong was well aware that the guest elder token could only allow the Dark Color Arena to help for free once. She had no intention of using the Dark Color Arena to exchange for a second chance. Naturally, she could only start with Chief Steward Cheng. As long as the other party agreed to help family Hu, then she would not need to use a second chance. Haha. Chief Steward Cheng was well aware of this. However, evil Dr. Ghost Eye's pills were too priceless and extremely rare. Moreover, the effects of the pills that Luo Qingtong took out were something that even he coveted. Immediately he did not decline and directly kept the 2 bottles of pills. Ninth young master is overthinking. You are our Dark Color Arena's honored guest. Your matter is our Dark Color Arena's matter. We will do our best. By saying this, he had already agreed to Luo Qingtong's request to help family who. As Chief Steward Chung said this, his fierce eyes swept over everyone present. Finally, he fixed his gaze on the Hua family head and the others. Hua family head, don't you think so? Chief Steward Cheng's words were full of threat. The Hua family head and the others had ugly expressions. Especially the Hua family head. As he watched Hu Zhongtian and the others receive the property deed from Luo Qingtong, his heart was bleeding. At the same time, he felt ashamed and humiliated. After all, everyone knew how much he had looked down on family Hu. Now more than half of the Hua family's property had fallen into Hu Zhongtian's hands. Not only that, but family Hu had also received the pills bestowed by Luo Qingtong. Just with those 10 bottles of pills, Hu Zhongtian and the others' strength could rise to the next level. Don't underestimate the strength of this level. At their level of strength and age, it was extremely difficult to advance even a single step. Hu Zhongtian and the others obtaining these pills was equivalent to obtaining a chance to improve their strength for free. The Hua family head's eyes read. There was an unspeakable gloominess in his heart. When he heard Chief Steward Cheng's words, he felt his heart. That feeling of wanting to vomit blood viciously tortured him, causing his mouth to be filled with the taste of rust. As the head of a top family clan, the Hua family head had not suffered such a loss for a very, very long time. Not to mention the fact that he was suffering in silence, unable to voice out his bitterness. Yes. He forcefully squeezed out a word from between his teeth in response to Chief Steward Cheng's words. If not for the fact that he still wanted to kill Luo Qingtong, he would have vomited blood and collapsed to the ground. Collect. Let family Hu collect as much as they wanted. Wait until they entered the Saint King's tomb and killed Yi Jiao. Chapter 1460. The Hua family head was furious as he forcefully swallowed the taste of rust in his mouth. After receiving the Hua family head's response, Chief Steward Chung nodded in satisfaction, and then looked at Luo Qingtong. His gaze was very obvious. He was telling Luo Qingtong that he would definitely do what she asked him to do properly. The Hua family head forcefully swallowed his anger. On the other side, the Ouyang family head was also feeling very uncomfortable. He looked at the 10 bottles of elixirs that Luo Qingtong took out with red eyes and an indescribable gloominess in his heart. Damn it, if they had known that Yi Jiao and the evil Dr. Gui Tong were old friends and could take out such precious elixirs, why would the Ouyang family offend the other party so early on for the sake of the sage doctor? Previously, they thought that offending Luo Qingtong for Feng Wan wasn't a big deal. But at this moment, looking at the various benefits that the family Hu people received and thinking about the shame that he and the Hua family had suffered, the Ouyang family had gritted his teeth in his heart. Even Feng Wan's medical skills, which he had previously taken a fancy to, were somewhat lacking compared to the few bottles of elixirs that Luo Qingtong took out. The 2 words sage doctor were really ironic. In front of the elixirs that Luo Qingtong took out, how could Feng Wan be worthy of the 2 words sage doctor? The Ouyang family head's heart was stuffy and his heart was filled with anger and displeasure towards Feng Wan. If it weren't for him, how could he have become enemies with Yi Jiao again and again? There wasn't even any room for reconciliation now. Otherwise, even if they couldn't obtain these elixirs from the other party, they could at least exchange for them with other things. Disregarding everything else, didn't Yi Jiao want to support the family Hu with his businesses in Wilderness City? They could also take out some of their businesses to exchange for those elixirs. However, this opportunity was completely ruined by Feng Wan. Even if they took out their businesses, Yi Jiao might not sell them. He was not the only one who thought so. Even the patriarchs of the other top clans had the same thought. They looked at the medicinal pills in Hu Zhongtian and Chief Steward Cheng's hands with envy. However, they had just offended Luo Qingtong. It wasn't easy for the other party to let them off. They simply couldn't open their mouths to ask the other party to buy these medicinal pills. After all, This was different from Luo Qingtong letting them off. Luo Qingtong had let them off before mostly because she wanted to take advantage of the Hua family. After the auction of the sage monarch's tomb, they were more or less aware of the situation. Therefore, he naturally knew that Luo Qingtong would not sell those medicinal pills to them unless something unexpected happened. As the crowd thought of this, they suddenly felt an indescribable sense of regret in their hearts. Their gazes towards the Hua family head, and the Hua family became even more unfriendly. It was all because of the Hua family that they had such a deep grudge with Yi Jiao. They had missed such an opportunity to obtain the medicinal pill. Not only that, but the Hua clan had also snatched the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. They worked so hard, but other than offending Luo Qingtong, they didn't get anything else. What a good Hua family head. You Hua family people, just you wait. The top clans looked angrily at the Hua family head and the others. The pitiful Hua family head and the others had snatched the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. But they had offended a bunch of people. Luo Qingtong had only given one gift to the family whose people and chief steward Cheng, but she had already created enough hatred for the Hua family head and Feng Wuan. Yu Si Huang watched from the side. The light in his eyes flickered slightly. Chapter 1461. This kind of scheming, this kind of means, it was the style of a matriarch. Not to mention that Luo Qingtong had both strength and ability. Yu Xingqi thought for a long time, and felt that it was too difficult to find a woman who was comparable to Luo Qingtong, and make his brother give up. In this world, who else could be like Luo Qingtong, calm and domineering, scheming but not deep, with many means but extraordinary ability? Yu Xingqi felt that it would be easier to help Yu Si Huang chase Luo Qingtong. Humph! Yu Si Huang coldly snorted and glanced at her with his charming eyes. He didn't know who was the one who gave him all kinds of blows in the past, telling him to quickly give up and find someone else. Yu Xingqi stuck out his tongue and didn't speak. While the brother and sister were whispering, Luo Qingtong had already looked at the Ouyang family head who was sitting on the main seat in front of them with a gloomy and ugly expression. She said, "Ouyang family head, please continue with the Saint Monarch's tomb conference." Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, and everyone was shocked to realize that they were still participating in the Saint Monarch's tomb conference. It was just that this conference, initiated and hosted by the Ouyang family, had completely turned into Luo Qingtong's home ground. The whole venue was her performance. What was there to continue? The head of the Ouyang family gritted his teeth as he thought of this. No need to continue anymore, he said angrily and waved his sleeves heavily. Take out the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb in your hands. Put it together. 3 days later, we will go to the entrance of the Saint Monarch's tomb together. He didn't want to see Luo Qingtong and the others for even a breath of time. Ouyang family head took out the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb in his hand. Hua family head saw this and couldn't care less about his depressed heart. He raised his hand and took out the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb he got from Luo Qingtong. The two looked at Luo Qingtong. The latter just smiled slightly and looked at Yu Si Huang. The corners of the latter's mouth twitched as he took out the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. When the three maps were placed together and stacked on top of each other, they immediately revealed a brand new pattern. Other than the entrance's topography remaining unchanged, the interior's route had completely changed. The Hua family head and the Ouyang family had impatiently memorized the new route on the map. Yu Si Huang's heart was filled with depression. He looked at Luo Qingtong. Why didn't the girl take out the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb? When the 4 maps were stacked together, it was the most complete map of the Sage Monarch's tomb. At this moment, the routes revealed by the 3 maps were still lacking. There were still some places where the mechanisms and secret passageways were not completely revealed. Luo Qingtong also wanted to enter the Saint Monarch's tomb. A complete map would be of great use to her. She wouldn't hide the map of the Saint King's tomb, and not take it out just to spite the Hua and Ouyang family heads, right? Yu Si Huang really didn't know what Luo Qingtong wanted to do. The latter's expression was very leisurely. Luo Qingtong ignored Yu Si Huang's gaze, and just watched from the side. When the Hua family head and the Ouyang family head took back their respective maps of the Saint Monarch's tomb, she said to everyone, "Let's go." The group left the Ouyang family, Chapter 1462. As for Yu Huang, after dismissing the people from the southern region, he and Yu Xingqi followed Luo Qingtong and the others back to Family Hu. As soon as they stepped through the door of Family Hu's main courtyard, Yu Xingqi could no longer hold it in. Sister, you still have a map of the Saint King's tomb. Why didn't you take it out? The map of the Saint King's tomb needs to be superimposed to show the latest route. You have no use for one map by yourself, Yu Xingqi said. As soon as her voice sounded, Hu Zhongtian and the others suddenly looked at Luo Qingtong in surprise. The latter actually had a map of the Saint King's tomb on her? Even Hu Yinyang looked at Luo Qingtong in surprise. She knew that Luo Qingtong had a map in her hands. She originally thought that the map in Yu Huang's hands was Luo Qingtong's, and that it was given by Yu Huang's hands. Now it seemed that it was not the case. Master obviously had a map in her hands. Why didn't she take it out to make a complete map? Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong in surprise. You will know when you follow me. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent, and she did not say much. She directly led Hu Yinyang and the others to Family Hu's main courtyard lobby. Everyone here was on the same side, so Luo Qingtong did not hide anything. She raised her hand and took out the map of the Saint King's tomb from the Celestial Palace, and then stretched out her hand to Yu Huang. Map. Yu Huang handed over the map of the Saint King's tomb in his hands to her without any temper. He did not know if Yi Qianxian was also like this in front of her. He speculated in his heart with bad intentions. If that was the case, then there was nothing to be ashamed of in his current appearance. As he was thinking, he suddenly heard a series of exclamations from all around. Yu Huang raised his head, and in an instant his pupils shrank. This is, as far as his eyes could see, Luo Qingtong raised her hand and drew two maps of the Saint King's tomb, which were suspended in the air. These two maps of the Saint King's tomb were completely composed of spiritual energy, and the markings on them were extremely clear. There was even a flow of spiritual energy in them. As the two maps were completed by Luo Qingtong raised her hand and overlapped the two maps with her and Yu Huang's maps. In an instant, a brand new map of the Saint King's tomb completely appeared before everyone. Remember this map of the Saint King's tomb. This is the most complete map of the Saint King's tomb, said Luo Qingtong looked. And Yu Huang. The latter and the others were already stunned by Luo Qingtong's methods. Master? Hu Yinyang was such a mature and steady person. For a moment, he forgot to cover up the way he addressed Luo Qingtong and stuttered. The method that Luo Qingtong showed now could be said to be the work of the gods. That was the map of the Saint King's tomb. A tomb map drawn by a Saint King. How on earth was Master able to completely memorize all the hidden spiritual chi imprints and lines within it? How could it be reproduced without a single mistake? The methods that were revealed were simply too shocking. Everyone looked at the brand new map of the Saint King's tomb that appeared in front of Luo Qingtong, and did not know what to say. Chapter 1463. It turned out that his master had such a method. The two maps of the Saint King's tomb that Luo Qingtong drew in the air were clearly the two maps in the hands of the Ouyang and Hua family heads. No wonder his master had to borrow the map of the Saint King's tomb from the Ouyang family head to look at for a quarter of an hour. She was afraid that the Ouyang family head would tamper with it. It turned out that she wanted to memorize the map of the Saint King's tomb. And the Hua family head was even more deceptive. The map of the Saint King's tomb that the other party had painstakingly bought back was already memorized by Luo Qingtong. It was useless at all. She even tricked him ruthlessly. If the Hua family head knew, he would vomit a few liters of blood. 80% of his property was wasted. Everyone thought so, and suddenly the corners of their lips twitched slightly. For the black-bellied master, and for the bad luck of the Hua and Ouyang family heads. As for Yu Huang, after the momentary shock, he quickly discovered the difference between the two maps drawn by Luo Qingtong. To be precise, it was the difference between the map of the Saint King's tomb that Luo Qingtong sold to the Hua family by Family Hu. This map. Yu Huang looked at the map of the Saint King's tomb that was superimposed on his and Luo Qingtong's maps, and his face was slightly puzzled. It seems to be different from what I just saw in the Ouyang family. Yu Huang saw the map of the Saint King's tomb in the hands of the Hua family head. Although he only glanced at it casually, he remembered the general outline. This map of the Saint King's tomb drawn by Luo Qingtong was obviously different from the one in the hands of the Hua family head. Could it be that Luo Qingtong drew it wrong? Or did she remember it wrong? He thought so and immediately wanted to remind Luo Qingtong. However, before he could speak, he heard the girl slowly say, "Of course it's different. The one I gave him, I changed it." When Yu Huang heard Luo Qingtong's words, he almost choked on his own saliva. "You've changed? That is to say the latest map route we saw in the Ouyang family just now." "Oh, it's wrong," Luo Qingtong said casually. With her personality, how could she give the map of the Saint King's tomb to the Hua clan so easily? Not to mention that he had given it to her on his own accord. Even if she didn't want it, she would never give it to the Hua family. That map was specially altered by her to trick the Hua family and the Ouyang family. Luo Qingtong was able to see through the veins hidden in the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. She only needed to slightly change a few places, and it was enough to change the appearance of the Saint Monarch's tomb. And because Luo Qingtong was familiar with the spirit energy patterns and routes in the map, that change did not affect the new route formed by the superposition of the three maps. It was just that the route of the map that appeared was wrong. In other words, Luo Qingtong not only used a map of the Saint King's tomb that she didn't need at all to cheat the Hua family of 80% of their business, but the map that she gave to the Hua family head was also wrong. Even the Ouyang family head fell into the pit together. Yu Huang thought so and was speechless for a moment. This woman was too two-faced, wasn't she? Why did he inexplicably mourn for the Hua family head and the Ouyang family? He thought that he had paid a big price to get a bargain, but in the end, what he got was a pit. Chapter 1464. Yu Huang's lips twitched. At the same time, in the Ouyang family, Feng Yuan had already learned about what happened at the Sage King's tomb. She learned that Luo Qingtong had invited people from the Dark Colors arena to support her and fought against the Ouyang family and the Hua family. Not only that, but she also set up an auction for the Sage King's tomb map and got 80% of the Hua family's property. In an instant, her heart was filled with hatred. Bang! In an instant, she swept away all the things in front of her and sat there, panting heavily. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Her every word was like a ghost's. Feng Yuan's hands suddenly clenched, and her sharp nails instantly dug deep into the table in front of her, almost crushing the hard Namu table into pieces. Really hateful. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye actually had such a trump card behind her. If she knew that she had the Dark Colors arena behind her, she wouldn't have made things difficult for her in this Sage King's tomb. She sent herself to her door for no reason, and let the other party humiliate her. And that Ouyang Xiao, what the hell is going on? Why did the eye technique she used on him suddenly lose its effect? Feng Yuan's silver teeth creaked as she clenched them. When she faced Luo Qingtong, she wouldn't have lost so miserably. As long as Ouyang Xiao was under her control, the Ouyang family would definitely have a fierce conflict with Luo Qingtong. Even if the people from the Dark Colors arena came, it didn't matter. As long as Ouyang Xiao was in her hands, how could she be threatened by Luo Qingtong and forced by the Ouyang family head to bow her head and apologize to the other party? It was at that time that something went wrong. It caused her to lose face and suffer humiliation in the end. That's not it. She thought that after she left, the Ouyang family head and others who were enraged would definitely not let Luo Qingtong and the others have an easy time. But she didn't expect that in the end. It completely became Luo Qingtong's home ground. Forget about dealing with the other party. The Ouyang family head and others were completely led by the nose by the latter, okay? This Sage King's Tomb conference was originally held by the Ouyang family head to humiliate and deal with Luo Qingtong. In the end, it was all for the other party's reputation. On the contrary, the Ouyang clan and the Hua clan suffered a crushing defeat. Hate. Feng Yuan was filled with hatred. She hated the feeling that she was inferior to Luo Qingtong in everything. Ever since the evil Dr. Ghost Eye had appeared, she had never been successful. As long as it was a scheme against the other party, it would always be seen through. Feng Yuan was almost driven mad by the fact that he was always inferior to his opponent. She was the proud daughter of heaven of the Sky Spill continent. She was the most promising youth in the Black Field, second only to the underworld venerables. She would never allow anyone to overshadow her glory. Evil Dr. Gui Tong must die. Feng Wuan's eyes were cold, filled with a murderous aura. At this moment, Ouyang family had stepped into her small courtyard angrily. Saint Doctor. What's wrong with you today? Ouyang family head was also very angry and embarrassed today. The Sage King's Tomb Conference should have been a good opportunity for the Ouyang family to establish their prestige, but it was completely ruined by Feng Wuan's actions against Luo Qingtong. If he knew this would happen, he would never have agreed to Feng Wuan's request to help him deal with Luo Qingtong. He had provoked such an enemy for no reason. Although they had a cooperative relationship with Feng Wuan, there was no stipulation that they had to help Feng Wuan deal with the enemy. Chapter 1465. Ouyang family had trembled in anger when he thought of the scene at the Sage King's tomb today. Before this, the Ouyang clan had never suffered such a huge loss, and had never suffered such a great humiliation. He was seen as a joke by everyone both inside and outside. What are you shouting for? Feng Wuan's voice was cold. She hadn't settled the score with Ouyang family head for forcing her to apologize to evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Moreover, how did she know that Luo Qingtong was backed by the Dark Colors Arena? The Ouyang family was the top family in Wild City, but they didn't even know this. Not only that, they couldn't even deal with evil Dr. Ghost Eye who hid his identity. How dare they shout in front of her? If not for the fact that she still needed to rely on the Ouyang family for some parts of her plan, she would have killed everyone in the Ouyang family. How dare the Ouyang family head shout in front of her? Feng Wuan's expression was cold. Without any outsiders around, she completely revealed her true nature. If not for the fact that she was afraid of revealing too much at the Sage King's tomb and affecting her future plans, she wouldn't have been forced by the Ouyang family head. If it were any other time, the Ouyang family would all die if they dared to treat her like this. Feng Yuan's current expression was gloomy and ice-cold like a ghost. She looked coldly at the Ouyang family head and said, "What's done is done. Instead of shouting at me here, why don't you think about how to deal with Yi Jiao in the Sage King's tomb? The others are nothing to be afraid of. Only she has the support of the king of the southern region. She might be a huge variable in our plan. Don't forget our agreement. Even if I don't let you deal with Yi Jiao, she will still be your enemy when we enter the Sage King's tomb. I let you deal with her now, but she revealed herself in advance, so you can be prepared. What do you have to blame me for?" The moment Feng Yuan's words left his mouth, the Ouyang family head's expression eased slightly. What she said wasn't without reason. However, "Are you sure about that plan, Holy Doctor?" He looked suspiciously at Feng Yuan. After the incident at the Sage King's tomb, he didn't trust Feng Yuan anymore. Yi Jiao had suffered a few losses at the hands of Yi Jiao. If the plan in the Sage King's tomb went wrong, the Ouyang family would immediately become the target of public. Not only that, the power behind that Yi Jiao was so shocking, he didn't know what his identity was. Plus you see Huang. If Feng Yuan's plan, the Ouyang family wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Humph. Fortune lies in danger. Ouyang family head Luanzes. However, I have to remind you that if you miss this opportunity, your Ouyang clan may not have such an opportunity in the future to reach the heavens in a single bound. Furthermore, you've already offended Yi Jiao. It's unknown if he will let you off in the future. Lin Ziyi. Se's clan's Lin Yi Dark's Dark Se. Ouyang family head. How long do you think it will take for them to replace your Ouyang family's position in the Wild City? Feng Yuan sneered. Chapter 1466. Let's do as you say. I'll immediately contact the Hua family head. This time, we'll definitely make sure that none of them return from the Saint King's tomb. The Ouyang family head said as he strode out of the small courtyard. At the same time, his words floated in from outside. I hope you won't make a mistake this time. Absolutely not. Feng Yuan's voice was cold. She didn't expect evil Dr. Gui Tong to come to the western wilderness. But since he's here, don't even think about leaving. This Saint King's tomb will be her burial ground. She swore to use her blood as a sacrifice to start her journey of glory. Evil Dr. Guitong Luo Qingtong Great Chu, the Empire of Qin. Those who had once dealt with her and caused her to be in such a miserable state, all of them, just you wait. When she returns, she'll make all these people pay the price in blood. Feng Wuan's eyes were extremely cold. At the same time in Family Hu, Luo Qingtong let the people in Family Hu and Yu Sihuang memorize the new route of the map. Then she immediately kept the two maps. She wanted to return one of them to Yu Sihuang. However, when the latter thought of her method of copying the map, his lips twitched and he immediately rejected it. He'll let Luo Qingtong keep it herself. Yu Sihuang didn't doubt that when he first showed the map to Luo Qingtong, she might have already memorized the map in his hands. Otherwise, why would she agree to let him accompany her so easily? And when she was with him, she wasn't polite at all. It was as if she wasn't afraid that he would leave with the map. Yu Sihuang was puzzled for a long time. Now he knew why. Since that was the case, what was the point of taking the map back? What's more, when he brought this map he was going to give it to Luo Qingtong. He was afraid that she wouldn't let him accompany her, so he made a request. Who knew that the girl's tricks were so deep? Yu Sihuang's heart was deeply frustrated. His flower-like and jade-like beauty really couldn't attract the other party's interest at all. Damn it. He couldn't be that much worse looking than Yi Qianxian, right? Could it be that he really wasn't strong enough? With Luo Qingtong's temperament, it was possible that she would like someone stronger. As Yu Sihuang thought about it, he immediately rubbed his beautiful and clean chin, and decided that he must become stronger. Let's see how Luo Qingtong will ignore him. While Yu Sihuang was deep in thought, Luo Qingtong was in her room. She closed the door and windows, and conveniently let Little Pig out. Guard this place well, Luo Qingtong said, then took out the jade thumb ring that she had found first, which was related to the Saint King's tomb. Shua. As Luo Qingtong activated the mechanism, a spiritual energy light pattern instantly pulled Luo Qingtong out from the ring, like pulling out a brocade. This was the first clue that Luo Qingtong had found about the Saint King's tomb. But at that time, she thought that this light pattern was the map of the Saint King's tomb. But now it seemed that this light pattern was related to the Saint King's tomb. But it wasn't a part of the Saint King's tomb map. What would appear when it was superimposed with the complete map formed by the four maps of the Saint King's tomb? Luo Qingtong thought so, and immediately superimposed the light pattern in the jade thumb ring with the new map of the Saint King's tomb. Chapter 1467. A faintly discernible red that appeared on the brand new map of the sage monarch's tomb. This is, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. When the light pattern on the jade ring overlapped with the brand new map of the sage monarch's tomb, a red dot appeared. What did it represent? A secret place in the sage monarch's tomb? Since the light pattern on the jade ring overlapped with the map of the sage monarch's tomb, it meant that it was related to the sage monarch's tomb. What's this? Little Pig had just been released by Luo Qingtong, and was swaying left and right. When it turned around and saw the big red dot on the light pattern in Luo Qingtong's hand, it asked in surprise. I don't know. Luo Qingtong tapped her index finger. She looked at the red dot and suddenly remembered the information she received from the people of the Celestial Palace. The information about the land of the fallen immortals in the hidden world. The people of the Celestial Palace brought the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb out of the hidden world in order to find clues about the land of the fallen immortals hidden in the Sage Monarch's tomb. I wonder if the light pattern on the jade ring is related to the land of the fallen immortals? No matter if it is or not, it is still a clue. With this thought in mind, Luo Qingtong immediately memorized the location of the big red dot and threw the jade ring to Little Pig. Here, you like it? The corner of Little Pig's lips twitched as he looked at the jade thumb ring that had been completely squeezed out of it. Forget it, forget it. In any case, she returned it to me. Isn't that right? Little Pig comforted himself with twitching lips. Where did that little fox go? Little Pig put away the jade thumb ring, and said while looking left and right. He knew that Yi Qianxian gave a little fox to Luo Qingtong. In the end, this woman who didn't take him seriously treated that little fox like a treasure. Previously, She didn't even let him out for a walk. She was even afraid that he would bully that little fox. Was there any justice in this world? Who exactly was her contracted beast? He was a dignified divine pig. His status as a contracted beast was simply too sullen. Little Pig had a belly full of anger in his heart. He was thinking of telling that little fox who was the boss here after he came out of the cave. Unexpectedly, he didn't see it when he came out this time. Yi Qianxian brought it back. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows at the mention of Yin Bao. She had actually brought back the little fox from the Ouyang family, but it was too different from Silver Bao. After Luo Qingtong played with her for a while, she lost interest and handed her over to Hu Yinyang. Speaking of which, she was not a person who particularly liked small animals, but she liked to take care of Silver Baby. The care of it had never been left to anyone else. Was it because he loved her? Or was it because of something else? Luo Qingtong fell into deep thought. Meanwhile, in the black field, bolts of black lightning suddenly gathered above the huge floating city. Those bolts of lightning were as thick as giant beasts. They circled around the entire black field and danced up and down, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Rumble! The remaining power of those bolts of lightning was incomparably shocking from afar. What's going on? A Sage Realm expert in the black field was about to fly out to investigate. Chapter 1468. With a sizzling sound, a small lightning aura suddenly splashed down from above. In the next second, he didn't even have time to scream before he was turned into ashes by that small lightning aura. Seeing this scene, the faces of the people in the Black Domain General City immediately changed. Where did these lightning bolts come from? It was actually so powerful. Just this tiny bit of aura was enough to kill a Saint Realm expert without being able to resist. If all the lightning in the sky were to fall, then the consequences would be. No one dared to imagine it. As everyone in the black field was horrified, in the dark venerable palace, Bei Qing and Feng Yu looked up at the thunder and lightning gathering in the sky, their expressions extremely solemn. Elder Yu. They looked at the old man beside them. Yi Qianxian's demon fox blood essence had been dissolved by more than half. This was when the lightning began to gather. Obviously, they were all coming for their master. Take your master and leave this place immediately. Elder Yu's expression was also indescribably solemn. His expression was grave as he looked at the sky outside the Black Region headquarters. Everyone in the Black Field only saw the thunder and lightning in the sky, but they didn't know that in the depths of the void, there was an even thicker thunder and lightning that was like a divine thunder that could destroy the world, brewing. Moreover, that aura seemed to be endless, gathering more and more. At this moment, the thunder and lightning aura condensing in the sky above the black field was not at its strongest. When it finished brewing and fell, not to mention the entire black field, even the entire sky spill continent would be crushed under the bombardment of these thunder and lightning. Wasn't this boy's physique too scary? He had only borrowed the demon fox's demon fox blood essence and heart core to extend his life for 3 years. It had caused such turmoil in the heavenly Tao. The heavenly vein body was so powerful, the heavenly Tao couldn't tolerate it at all. But no matter what, Yi Qianxian couldn't stay here any longer. The sky spill continent's level was too low. It couldn't withstand the bombardment of these thunder and lightning. They couldn't display their full strength here. Let's go, he said to Bei Qing and Feng Yu. Yes. The two of them did not dare delay, so they quickly entered the medicine hall. They picked up the silver fox, whose eyes were closed as it tried to dissolve the fox blood inside its body. Then they flew out of the black field. Buzz. The silver fox was lying in the basket that Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others had prepared. Its whole body was glowing with light. A faintly discernible human silhouette appeared behind it. Following the dissolution of the demon fox's blood essence in its body, the human-shaped light figure became more and more solid. At the same time, the aura of the thunder and lightning condensed in the sky became more condensed and powerful. Following the departure of Bei Qing, Feng Yu and the others, the lightning also disappeared. The people in the Blackfield main city heaved a sigh of relief, not knowing what had happened. Only Elder Yu, Du Fei, and the others who were watching them leave knew what was going on. In the western wilderness, In the Wild City, Luo Qingtong was still unaware of the changes that had occurred in the Blackfield main city. After she memorized the red dot on the light pattern in the jade ring, she went to where Su Yu and the others were and handed over all the resources and connections of the voodoo sect to them. Chapter 1469. Because they wanted to develop Su Yu and the others as a secret force, Luo Qingtong would not enter the Saint King's tomb with them this time. Everything depended on Su Yu and the others. However, she believed that with the complete map of the Saint King's tomb, Su Yu and the others should have no problem with their abilities. After Luo Qingtong finished dealing with these matters, the 3-day time limit was also up. Wild City Central Square. When Luo Qingtong and the others arrived, there was already a surge of people here. Because the Ouyang clan had released the news in advance, there were many forces in the far west wilderness who had rushed here. In addition, there were many itinerant cultivators. There were many lone pioneers in the far west wilderness. Not everyone who came to the far west wilderness would form a force or establish a force. Many people came here to hunt for the resources they needed at the moment. After hunting, they would leave, so they did not join any forces. Now that they heard the news of the Saint King's tomb, they immediately rushed over to try their luck. However, most of these people just happened to be in the far west wilderness and happened to hear the news of the Saint King's tomb. There were no powerhouses who deliberately heard the news and rushed over from the other 3 regions. After all, a month's time was not long, but it was not short either. The news spread from Wild City. It was already lucky for the people in the far west wilderness to hear it. It was basically difficult to spread to the other 3 regions. Even if it spread, those people could not make it in time. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. She did not know what the Ouyang clan and Feng Wan were doing. They deliberately spread the news of the Saint King's tomb and set a 1-month time limit. What were they trying to do? However, this trip to the Saint King's tomb would definitely not be peaceful. The arrival of Luo Qingtong and the others quickly attracted the attention of everyone present. Most of the forces present participated in the Saint King's tomb conference. Those who did not participate also heard about it from those who did. Everyone now knew that family who had a young master Yijio. His identity and origin were mysterious, but he was able to invite the kings of the 3 islands and 7 lands in the southern region, and the people of the Dark Colors Arena to back him up. Especially the people from the Dark Colosseum. They had never interfered with the matters of the far west desolate region, but this time, they had made an exception for the other party. Not only that, but she had also humiliated the Hua clan and Ouyang clan at the Sage King's tomb. He had acquired 80% of the Hua family's assets. Now, with the help of the Dark Colors Arena, 80% of the business belonged to family Hu. It could be said that family Hu, who was once in decline, had now risen again and became a first-rate force in the Wildland City. They had entered the ranks of the top forces. The only thing that family Hu lacked now was the strength of a top family. However, Yi Jiao and family, who both had a map in their hands for this expedition to the Saint Monarch's tomb, who knew what they would gain. If it was a huge hit, then this time, family Hu would really be like a dragon leaping out of the abyss and soaring into the sky. After all, the young master of family Hu Fei, was once an outstanding disciple who was not inferior to the direct descendants of the top families. After being in a coma for more than 10 years, not only did his strength not regress, it even improved. Now his cultivation was already at the saint stage. With such strength, coupled with the gains in the Saint Monarch's tomb, family Hu would definitely be able to secure the position of a top family in the future. And all of this depended on Luo Qingtong. The young man could summon rain with a flip of his hand and clouds with a flip of his hand. Chapter 1470. Before today, who would have thought that family Hu had almost been wiped out, would have such good fortune? All the big and small forces in Wildland City were already regretting their actions to the point of their intestines turning green. Especially those who used to be on good terms with family Hu but distanced themselves because of family Hu's decline, and even hit them when they were down. They were filled with regret. They heard that when family Hu dealt with the Bai family, The two small families who stood behind family who without a care for the consequences had now received generous rewards. When family whose people took over the Hua family's assets, they also took back the Bai family's assets that the other factions had previously divided. Back then it was family whose people who dealt with the Bai family. The other factions took advantage of family whose lack of power, and divided up the Bai family's assets. Now they had spat it all out. Family whose people divided it among the two small families. Those two families were instantly promoted to mid-level families. Not only that, they even signed a future alliance with family who, as long as family who did not fall, those two families would be protected forever. When this news spread, countless people beat their feet and stomped their chests. They had the same opportunity as those two families, but it was all ruined by their own selfishness and snobbishness. At this moment, those two families followed behind family whose people. Under the envious gazes of the crowd, Luo Qingtong led them to the center of the square. Humph! Despicable people intoxicated by success. When you enter the Saint King's tomb, I'll see how you die. Clan Head Hua looked at the figures of Luo Qingtong and the others, and his eyes instantly turned red as he gritted his teeth. 80% of the Hua family's assets had been taken away. That damned family who had chosen the most valuable assets of the Hua family and had the most solid foundation. Clan Head Hua was so angry that he almost fainted. At that moment, he realized that he had been tricked by Yi Jiu again. That bastard. Yi Jiu did not explain what 80% of the assets were, and he was so angry that he did not think too much. In the end, she took away 80% of the best assets on his side. This loss was almost equivalent to 90% of the value of his family's foundation. After family whose people took back all of the assets, the entire Hua family was practically an empty shell. If not for the Hua family's top fighters and experts, their reputation as a top family would have been undeserved. Clan Head Hua could still remember the feeling of blood rushing to his head. He hated that he could not cut Luo Qingtong into 1,000 pieces. Yi Jiu's. When they entered the Saint King's tomb, they would not. Of course, he would not let them die so easily. Especially Yi Jiu's. Clan Head Hua's family. In the Ouyang family's team, Feng Yuan, whose alias was Luan was beside the Ouyang family head. She looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong, and the others with a dark expression. Luo. Why? They were both hiding their identities. Luo Qingtong was living a glorious life, but she was like a mouse that could not be exposed to the light. Evil Dr. Guitong, just you wait. I will make sure you die miserably in the Saint King's tomb. Feng Yuan's eyes were vicious. She raised her hand and wiped the blood from her fingers. After noon, most of the forces had arrived. Clan Head Hua glanced at the forces gathered in the square, then ordered, "Let's go." Chapter 1471. The Sage Monarch's tomb was located in the southeast of Wild City, thousands of miles away. For ordinary people, this place was rather far away. However, it was nothing to the powerhouses of the various forces in Wild City. After all, those who dared to explore the Sage Monarch's tomb had to have a certain level of strength. For those who were weak, even if the map was given to them, they might not dare to go. The group of people flew quickly, and soon arrived at the entrance marked on the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb. This is the place. The Ouyang family had led the Ouyang family to a stop and landed in an open space in the wilderness. This place was not too far away from Wild City, and it was not too remote either. Many pioneers of Wild City might have passed by this place when they were entering or leaving the city. However, they never thought that there was a Sage Monarch's tomb hidden here. Rumble. As the Ouyang family head took out the map of the Sage Monarch's tomb, the sun instantly shone on the map. In an instant, countless rays of light converged, and then refracted into a straight line. It passed through the group of people, and landed on a huge rock not far away. The Ouyang family head walked over, and raised his hand to press on the spot where the ray of light shone. In an instant, there was a violent vibration. The place where everyone was standing rumbled, and the entire ground moved to the side, revealing a huge, dark hole. The entrance to the Sage Monarch's tomb. Everyone looked at the black hole that had suddenly appeared, and their eyes burned with passion. The tomb of a Saint Realm powerhouse. They wondered how many treasures there would be inside. Let's go. The Ouyang family head took the lead and led his people in. The Hua family people followed closely behind. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent as she followed behind them with the family Hu people. The people from the other forces followed behind the three of them and walked inside. After all of them had entered, there was a rumbling sound and the huge, dark hole outside closed again. The group of people continued to walk inside. The tunnel leading to the underground was very long and the walls were not smooth. As the group walked in, a Saint Realm powerhouse suddenly said, "This tunnel was directly blasted open by someone's strength." Hearing this, everyone's faces were filled with shock. Was he blasted out by someone's power? They looked around and quickly realized that this was indeed the case. On the walls of the passageway, there were still traces of energy scouring. Moreover, it was done in one breath without any interruption. In other words, the person who blasted open this passage only used one move. All of them were thinking about this when the Saint Realm expert who spoke just now suddenly raised his palm and slammed it towards the stone wall. Bang! The stone wall didn't move in the slightest, but he was forced to take a few steps back. What? When everyone saw this scene, they were instantly stunned. Why was the wall so hard? Many people refused to believe it and immediately raised their hands to attack the stone wall beside them. However, none of them were able to leave a single mark on it. Only now did everyone realize how powerful the person who blasted open this passage was. The longer they walked down, the more shocked they became. Oh my God! Is this the strength of a Saint Realm master? Everyone was extremely excited. By now they had probably walked a distance of nearly 1,000 meters. Even a Saint Realm powerhouse couldn't leave a mark on the stone wall to create such a long passage. The strength of the person behind this was unimaginable. In this Saint King's tomb, other than that Saint King powerhouse, who else would leave a passage leading to the tomb? Chapter 1472. All of a sudden, the area in front of them opened up. Like the sudden appearance of the sky, the light poured down from the front and shone. Everyone unconsciously narrowed their eyes and looked forward. They saw a glorious and dazzling underground palace suddenly appear in front of them. This underground palace covered an unknown area. The place where Luo Qingtong and the others appeared was right where the entrance was. The green bricks and glazed tiles mixed with the bronze door stood in front of everyone. This splendid underground palace was like a giant beast that was slumbering in this place. Everyone looked at it in amazement. At the same time, there was an indescribable joy in their hearts. This was the tomb of a holy king expert? The crowd approached the walls of the underground palace. Rumble! As if it had sensed their approach, the door to the underground palace slowly opened with a loud buzzing sound. Let's go! Ouyang family head and the others took the lead and walked inside. The crowd filed into the door of the underground palace. In front of them was a huge square. Everyone's figures appeared in it. This is the Holy King's tomb? Everyone looked around this place. The four sides of this square were usually connected to 3 passages on each side. There were a total of 12 passages. Each passage was exactly the same. The only difference was the ancient fierce beast carved above the entrance of the passage. These passages should be the way to enter the depths of the Holy King's tomb, right? Everyone looked at these passages and their hearts jumped in an instant. They looked at Luo Qingtong, Ouyang family head, Hua family head and the others. Yes, these passages all lead to the depths of the Holy King's tomb. You can choose any passage to enter. Ouyang family head nodded. His words were very obvious. At this point, the 3 families could no longer lead the way for everyone. Whether they could choose the right passage to enter or not, it was up to them. Everyone also understood the meaning of his words, and suddenly did not say anything. They were already mentally prepared before coming in. At this time, they were very obedient and began to choose the passage they wanted to enter. The 12 passages could accommodate a lot of people at the same time. After a while, the people in the square were almost gone. Luo Qingtong and Suyu, who were mixed in the crowd, looked at each other. The latter nodded at her with the heavenly diabolism's people, then led them into the correct passage. After everyone had entered the passage, Only Luo Qingtong's people, the Ouyang clan, and the Hua clan's people were left in the square. The head of the Ouyang family snorted coldly. His gaze was as cold as a knife as it swept over the place where Luo Qingtong and the others were. Let's go too. He would let Yi Jiao and the others live a little longer. When that time came, he would deal with them. The group strode towards a tunnel in front of them. That passage was the latest route that appeared after the 3 maps of the Saint Monarch's tomb overlapped. The Ouyang family head and the others had no idea that the route on the map was wrong. He didn't even look back as he continued to walk forward. The head of the Hua clan and the others also used their sharp gazes to look at the place where Luo Qingtong and the others were, especially Luo Qingtong. They wished they could poke a few holes in her body. Ha! Yi Jiao, 9th young master. Chapter 1473. Since ancient times, the strong have priority. Our Hua family and Ouyang family will go in first. You shouldn't have any objections, right? Of course, I think you probably don't have the right to have any objections. After all, your strength. Master Hua's gaze swept across Luo Qingtong and the family who people behind her. His face was full of contempt. He purposely ignored Yu Sihuang and the others to discuss Luo Qingtong and the others. Just based on Yi Jiao and the family who trashed behind her. If not for the support of Yu Sihuang and the people from the Dark Colors Arena, how could he and the others be so miserably defeated by her? This time, the people from the Dark Colors Arena didn't come. With only Yu Sihuang and the people from the southern region, he wanted to see how she could withstand his and the Ouyang family's attacks. Hearing that Master Hua was scolding them, family who people's expressions changed. Even if someone wanted to retort, Luo Qingtong raised her hand to stop him. Master Hua is right. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent as she looked at Master Hua with a smile. The strong have priority. Then Master Hua, please go in quickly. Otherwise it won't be good if we go in late. After all, if Master Ouyang falls too far behind, your Hua family will suffer a great loss. Luo Qingtong's smile was evil. That evil smile inexplicably made Master Hua's heart skip a beat. He felt a sense of trepidation. I don't need you to remind me of this. Of course I know. Thinking that Luo Qingtong had given in, Master Hua's expression was arrogant. He sneered and swept a glance at Luo Qingtong and the others. Then, with a flick of his sleeve, he led the Hua family people and hurriedly walked in the direction of the passage. Although they had formed an alliance with the Ouyang family to deal with Luo Qingtong together, but the items in the tomb of the Sage King were obtained with their own abilities. He couldn't let the Ouyang family people be too far ahead of them. Damn it, it's all Yi Jiao's fault. If he wasn't so angry, why would he stay for so long to humiliate them? Once they obtained the treasures in the Saint King's tomb, they would have a good time. With this thought in mind, the Hua family's patriarch quickened his pace. Looking at their hurried departing figures, the smile on Luo Qingtong's lips curled even higher. She only hoped that the Hua family would like the surprise she had specially prepared for them. Young master, Patriarch Hua has gone too far. Why did you let him off so easily? The people from family who were confused. Except for Hu Zhongtian, Hu Fei, and a few others who already knew about the real and fake map. Everyone else looked at Luo Qingtong with a puzzled expression. He didn't know why the 9th young master, who had always been strong, would allow the Hua family head to mock and ridicule him. He didn't even retaliate. This wasn't young master's style. Ever since they started following Luo Qingtong, they had never seen her suffer a loss. Not to mention, he had taken the initiative to suffer losses, and even agreed with Patriarch Hua's words. Young master, what's wrong with you? Everyone was confused, but Hu Zhongtian, Hu Fei, and the others who knew the truth immediately laughed. Haha, don't worry. Young master didn't suffer a loss. They all knew about the real and fake map, so naturally, they knew that Luo Qingtong's words had a hidden meaning. Chapter 1474. If there was a priority, it should be them. Clan head Hua's words were basically scolding them. Yet he was unaware of it and had a smug and proud look on his face. Hu Zhongtian and the others couldn't help but laugh when they thought about it. Luo Qingtong smiled at the side but didn't say anything. After a while, when clan head Hua and the others had all entered the tunnel, she said to everyone, let's go too. The people from family Hu and the people from the southern mountain range were still confused and didn't know what Hu Zhongtian and the others were laughing about. When they saw Luo Qingtong turn around and walk into another tunnel, and it wasn't the tunnel that clan head Hua and Ouyang clan head went into, they finally understood. Young master, you. The people from family Hu were pleasantly surprised. Even the people from the southern mountain range had a slight change in their expressions. At this point, if they still didn't know the truth, they would be a little stupid. The tunnel that Luo Qingtong walked into was the real safe tunnel in the Saint King's tomb, right? The tunnel that clan head Hua and Ouyang clan head took was fake. How did young master do it? Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong with unspeakable respect and admiration. Especially the people from the southern mountain range. They were both relieved and fearful. Fortunately, they followed Yu Sihuang and stood on Luo Qingtong's side. Otherwise, they would have been played to death by the young man's scheming methods and abilities. Until now, they still didn't know how Luo Qingtong managed to make the people from the Hua and Ouyang clans enter the wrong tunnel. Wasn't there no problem when the three maps were overlapped? Could it be that she could tamper with the maps? But that was a map made by a Saint King. Moreover, the new route would only appear when the three maps were overlapped. If she tampered with one of the maps, wouldn't it be exposed when the three maps were overlapped? Unless Luo Qingtong could make changes to the map without changing the spiritual energy fluctuation and texture of the map itself. As everyone thought so, they looked at Luo Qingtong with even more reverence. The people of the southern mountain range, because of their relationship with Yu Sihuang, reluctantly listened to Luo Qingtong. But now he was completely convinced. Luo Qingtong's trick was done in front of the Hua clan and Ouyang clan without anyone noticing. It was a piece of cake for her to kill them in the Saint Monarch's tomb. This was the first time that the people of the southern mountain range truly felt that strength did not necessarily mean everything. Sufficient scheming ability means coupled with the right time and place. It could completely negate the disparity in strength. Of course, absolute power was something that could not be broken through by any means. However, it was clear that they had not reached that level yet. A group of people followed Luo Qingtong with awe in their eyes and walked towards the correct passage. And in that wrong passage, Feng Wuan and the Ouyang clan's people were walking inside. Suddenly, no, quick. There was something wrong with this passage. Get out of here immediately. After the group had walked for some distance, the voice of the green smoke suddenly resounded in her mind. When Feng Wuan heard this, he was shocked and said, Chapter 1475. After Qing Yan gave her the map of the Saint King's tomb and asked her to come to the far west wilderness, he fell into a deep sleep. Feng Wuan thought that he had just woken up and did not know that the map of the Saint King's tomb had been superimposed with the other two maps to form another map route. Although the three maps were not complete, at least the first two-thirds of the map route shown would not be a problem. However, before she could finish her sentence, the voice of the wisp of Qing Yan sounded again. Nothing is impossible. There's something wrong with this passage. I've already sensed it, you. Before he could finish his sentence, in an instant rumble, a series of explosions could be heard coming from the front. An enormous storm of qi that seemed to want to wreak havoc on everything suddenly converged into a ball, roaring as it rolled over from the front. That terrifying and violent spiritual energy almost tore everything apart and filled the entire passage. Mechanism. It's a mechanism. This passage is wrong. Quick. Retreat. The people of the Ouyang clan in front were already panicking and kept running backward. Rumble. The huge spiritual energy ball rolled, and the spiritual energy it emitted was like a sharp sword. Wherever it passed, the Ouyang clan disciples who were slightly weaker were immediately pierced by the spiritual energy arrows. Finally, they were cut into pieces. Ah! Run! In the passage, the screams and panicked voices of the people of the Ouyang clan sounded, and the scene suddenly became chaotic. Holy Doctor, what's going on? The Ouyang clan master was in high spirits and led his people to the front. When he saw the treasure, he immediately showed his skills. However, he did not see the treasure, but such a mechanism was waiting for him. With a leap, he instantly appeared in front of Feng Wuan and asked in exasperation. The map in his hand came from Feng Wuan. When something happened, he naturally looked for him. However, the Ouyang clan master could not figure it out. The three maps were clearly superimposed to show the latest route. Logically, there should not be a problem. What was going on now? However, not to mention him, even Feng Wuan could not figure out how things turned out like this. There's a problem with the map route. Let's get out of here first. Seeing that the giant ball formed by the spiritual energy storm was flying towards him, Feng Wuan didn't have time to think too much. He turned around and rushed back. The Ouyang family had no other choice. The group of people from the Ouyang family all flew back in a sorry state. Along the way, from time to time, some of the weaker disciples of the Ouyang clan would be caught up by the spiritual energy storm and die from being pierced by thousands of arrows. Screams rang out endlessly. Behind them, the Hua family head and the others had just entered the passage and were about to chase after the Ouyang family head and the others. However, at this moment, he heard a series of screams coming from the front, as well as the roar of the spirit energy storm raging. What's going on? The head of the Hua family was stunned for a moment before he immediately reacted. There's something wrong with this tunnel. Ouyang family head and the others had encountered a trap ahead. Quick! Let's go! He hurriedly turned around. However, at this moment, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the entrance of the passage they came from. Then a huge rock slowly descended from the top of the passageway. Seeing this scene, the Hua family head's eyes almost popped out. Dragon breaking stone. Bastard! Yijio! It's all you're doing. Chapter 1476. When he turned around and didn't see Luo Qingtong and the others, Patriarch Hua knew something was wrong. Now that he saw the dragon-breaking stone falling from the sky, how could he not know what was going on? All of them had been fooled by Luo Qingtong. This passage wasn't a real safe passage at all. They and the Ouyang family were all fooled by Luo Qingtong. Although he didn't know how the other party did it, the Hua families head already knew in his heart that the new map made up of 3 maps that he and the Ouyang family's head saw was probably all wrong. That route was completely useless. As Patriarch Hua's voice sounded, Feng Wuan and the others, who were retreating with all their might, heard his words, and their expressions changed instantly. This was Luo Qingtong's trick. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Feng Wuan gritted his teeth in anger. Patriarch Ouyang's veins popped out on his forehead as he shouted, Yijio! Bastard! Don't let me go out. Otherwise, I'll make you wish you were dead. The other party had set a trap early on, and just waited for them to step into it. Bastard! Bastard! Patriarch Ouyang was furious. At this moment, there was only enough space for one person to bend over and escape before the dragon-breaking stone fell. Patriarch Hua was the closest to it. He was also the most powerful in the Hua family. At this moment, looking at the dragon-snapping stone that was about to completely fall, he was so angry that he was about to explode. Yijio! Yijio! I want you to die. Patriarch Hua's eyes were ferocious. It was impossible to take everyone from the Hua family out. These people were destined to be left in this passage full of mechanisms and traps, and he didn't know how many of them would survive in the end. Yijio, you deserve to die. Bang! Patriarch Hua rushed out of the passage, and at the same time, the dragon-breaking stone fell. Ah! No! Patriarch! Save us! The voices of the Hua clan were all blocked behind the dragon-breaking stone. However, that mournful voice seemed to resound in the ears of the Hua family head, causing his eyes to turn bloodshot. His entire face was distorted like a devil's. Yijio! He glanced around and saw Luo Qingtong standing not far from the passageway. The latter had just opened the dragon-breaking stone, and was about to turn around and leave when he saw the Hua family head's figure rushing out. He immediately narrowed his eyes. She calculated the time to open the broken dragon stone. Logically speaking, Patriarch Hua and the others should have already gone far enough. They shouldn't have had time to rush out. What went wrong? Luo Qingtong's mind spun rapidly as she retreated rapidly at the same time. At the same time, the Hua clan's patriarch charged toward her. Boom! The aura around him exploded. In an instant, a vast and powerful aura burst out from his body. It stirred up the heaven and earth spirit chi in the square, and formed a huge spirit chi vortex. The aura around him was vast and powerful. It surged like the sea and was extremely ferocious. The Sage Realm. The strength of the patriarch of a top family was so powerful. Back then, family who was extremely powerful but couldn't enter the top family, because Hu Zhongtian's strength was only one step away from the Sage Realm. He only needed to break through and surpass the Sage Realm to enter the top family. Chapter 1477. He had been tricked by Baifeng. Because of Yin Yang and Hu Fei's matter, he had been exhausted and unable to focus on breaking through. That was why he was delayed. At this moment, the Hua family head's aura spread out. Instantly Yu Sihuang and the other experts who were above the saint stage sensed it. Not good. Young master. Sensing the vast and mighty aura coming from the square, the faces of Hu Zhongtian and the rest abruptly changed. They were waiting for Luo Qingtong in the correct passage. The young man said that she would come later. However, she did not come. They sensed a different and powerful aura coming from the square outside. Something had happened to her. Qingtong. Yu Sihuang's demonic aura suddenly changed. In an instant, it became as deep as the sea. His face was ice cold. His devilishly handsome face was now filled with killing intent and coldness. The aura of the king of the southern mountain range was fully displayed. The aura around his body suddenly fluctuated, and in the next second, he rushed out of the tunnel before Hu Zhongtian and the others. Humph! You want to save her? Yu Sihuang, dream on. The Hua family head sneered. When he had attacked Luo Qingtong, he had already noticed that Yu Sihuang and the others were not around. Clearly, they had already entered the correct passageway. Yi Jiu had caused the Hua family to fall into the wrong passage. This time, the heavens were helping him. Without Yu Sihuang and the others, he wanted to see how she could block his attack. He wanted her to die in despair. Yu Sihuang and the others could forget about saving her. Sensing Yu Sihuang's aura rushing out of the passage, the Hua family head smiled maliciously. He suddenly raised his hand. An extremely fierce aura, carrying a power that could overturn mountains and seas, followed the direction of Yu Chonghuang and the others' auras and blasted towards the top of the correct passage. There was a ferocious beast totem carved on it. It was the mechanism of the dragon-breaking stone. When the Hua family head came out, he glanced around and found that the ferocious beast totem outside the passage they had entered had been activated. That must be the mechanism of the dragon-breaking stone. Yi Jiu, close the dragon-breaking stone and cut off all of our escape routes. Now, I'll let you have a taste of it. Let's see how you die in my hands. The Hua family head sneered with a ferocious expression. That attack, which was accompanied by a vast, unparalleled power, violently blasted the top ferocious beast totem into the stone wall. The mechanism was deeply triggered and lost control in an instant. Boom! The huge dragon-snapping stone fell from the top of the passage and closed the passage. And Yu Sihuang's current figure was less than a meter away from the entrance. Clear pupil. Seeing the dragon-breaking stone fall, Yu Sihuang's pupils suddenly shrank. Behind him, Hu Zhongtian and the others who were rushing over were also startled. Young master. Master. Chu Lingfeng, who was following closely behind Hu Zhongtian and the rest of the Saint Realm experts with his powerful physical strength, saw this scene and his eyes turned red. Mistress, she was still outside. He recklessly rushed to the front of the dragon-snapping stone and madly attacked it. Chapter 1478. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Continue to follow the route on the map. We'll meet at the end. That voice was very soft. It was obvious that Luo Qingtong used some special method to pass through the broken dragon stone. At the same time, outside, seeing that Yu Sihuang and the others were all trapped outside the broken dragon stone and isolated in the correct passage, Master Hua laughed wildly. Haha. Yijio. I'll see how you die this time. You should also have a taste of despair. As he spoke, he waved his sleeves fiercely. In an instant, a roar like the sea and a roar like the collapse of the mountains and the cracking of the earth came out from his sleeves. In an instant, a vast and aggressive attack swept towards Luo Qingtong violently. He wanted Luo Qingtong to die miserably in order to dispel the hatred in his heart. Yijio, prepare to die. As Master Hua's voice sounded, the terrifying huge spiritual energy attack that almost split the sky of the square blasted towards Luo Qingtong. You want to take my life? I'm afraid you're still a little lacking. After Luo Qingtong transmitted her voice to Yu Huang and the others, she focused her attention on Master Hua. At this moment, when she saw his violent attack coming towards her, she immediately focused her eyes. In an instant, she activated her pupil technique. Her figure was like a willow leaf in the wind. In an instant, she swept up and almost narrowly avoided Master Hua's attack. Then she stomped her feet. In the next second, she suddenly bent her waist and swept into a passage on the side. There were 12 passages in the square. Even if Luo Qingtong went the wrong way, she was not afraid. To others, these erroneous passageways could lead to death. But for Luo Qingtong, it was a rare chance of survival. Bang! Master Hua's attack missed. In an instant, the whole square shook violently. But the ground was not damaged at all. Bastard! Seeing that Luo Qingtong actually avoided his attack, Master Hua's eyes became more and more bloodshot. What kind of monster was he? He was actually able to dodge his attack. One should know that even a Saint Realm expert would not be able to dodge his attack. Only those who had surpassed the Saint Realm would be able to avoid it. As for Luo Qingtong, let alone the Sage Realm, she hadn't even reached the Martial Spirit Realm. The strength of the Martial Ancestor Realm was extremely weak in the eyes of the Hua clan's patriarch. However, Luo Qingtong used this weak power to the extreme. Like a needle piercing through a thin film, it pierced through the weakest point of his attack, forcibly breaking through his aura and avoiding his attack. What the hell is going on? Since when was a Martial Ancestor Realm cultivator this powerful? This was completely illogical. The Hua clan's patriarch was so angry that his whole body trembled. His whole body shook violently, and he quickly chased after Luo Qingtong. He didn't believe it. Luo Qingtong could avoid it once, but could she avoid it a second time, a third time, or even a fourth time? Sooner or later, he would be caught by him. Moreover, Luo Qingtong had swept into a wrong passage. Did she think that he wouldn't chase after her? What a joke. Even if the traps in there were to deal with him, they would deal with her first. He would see how she was unable to move an inch inside, and then look on in despair as he approached her step by step. Chapter 1479. But soon he couldn't laugh anymore. Rumble. As his figure plunged into the passageway, the hidden traps in all directions were suddenly activated at the same time. Countless attacks flew toward him like locusts and sharp swords. Seeing this scene, Patriarch Hua's eyes widened. This is impossible. What's going on? Why were these attacks specifically directed at him? Where was Yijio? Yijio was still in front of him. Why was she fine? And he didn't trigger these traps at all. Why were they suddenly attacking him? Patriarch Hua was about to go crazy when he saw this scene full of locusts. He couldn't understand what was going on. But he didn't know that Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes could see everything clearly in this passageway. She was naturally clear about those traps and secret passageways, leaving a little bit of power and waiting for Patriarch Hua to arrive to trigger them. It couldn't be easier. Patriarch Hua thought that he had forced her into a dead end, but he didn't know that without this passageway, facing him alone was the real dead end for Luo Qingtong. Now they were playing slowly. Luo Qingtong sneered. In fact, if not for the fact that she was afraid that some of the powerful attacks in this passageway would harm her, she would have triggered them immediately. Patriarch Hua would definitely not be able to return when he chased after her. But now, she was going to use her power to destroy these powerful traps, so that they couldn't be activated. This was to prevent Patriarch Hua from accidentally triggering them. She was really letting him off easy. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. Her figure plunged forward, leaving a trace of power in the traps along the way. Rumble. Behind her, the sound of explosions rang out violently. In just an instant, the area behind her was completely covered. Bastard. Patriarch Hua's figure was deeply trapped in those traps and almost couldn't move an inch. He was so angry that he wanted to go crazy. This Yi Jiao had too many tricks up her sleeves and her abilities were too strange. He didn't know who she was. She actually had the ability to move unimpeded in this passageway filled with traps. How did he do it? The Hua family had originally thought that he would be able to see Luo Qingtong's incomparably desperate eyes when he chased after her. He would wait until the enemy was blocked by the activated mechanisms before he could approach and kill the enemy. Unexpectedly, the mechanism had been triggered. However, he was the only one who was stopped. The head of the Hua family was so angry that he immediately unleashed all his strength to withstand the violent attacks. He tore them apart layer by layer and chased after Luo Qingtong. Yi Jiao, don't even think about running away. He gritted his teeth in anger as he stared fixedly at the frail and delicate figure of the youth in front of him. He would rather be injured than let the other party escape. Chua. Sensing the movement behind her, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. Her figure flashed through the passageway, and with a swoosh, she flashed into a left fork that appeared in front of her. At the same time, she raised her hand and released Little Pig from the 9-layered exquisite pagoda. Luo Qingtong's figure sprinted through the fork while activating the mechanisms along the way. She asked, "How's your strength recovering?" Chapter 1480. Luo Qingtong's eyes were ice cold. If Little Pig could use his power, she would immediately break the seal. She wanted to let Patriarch Hua see who was the unlucky one. It's done. However, there's a special barrier in this underground palace, so I can't reveal my true self here. Little Pig's expression was very gloomy. When he came out of the 9-layered exquisite pagoda, he discovered that Luo Qingtong was being chased by Patriarch Hua. Although he didn't know how she got separated from Yu Sihuang and the others, Little Pig was still very excited. He finally had a chance to show off his invincible might. However, before he could finish his excitement, he discovered that this underground palace was enveloped by a special barrier. It prevented him from revealing his true self here. Barrier. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. Her figure flitted past a corner of the passageway that appeared in front of her. She leaned against the wall of the passageway and stopped for a moment. She looked at Little Pig and asked, "Can you sense where its power is coming from?" "Yes." Little Pig nodded. Since it was able to sense the spirit power, it was naturally able to tell where it was coming from. Okay. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She sensed that Patriarch Hua's aura was getting closer and closer to the corner along with the traps. She immediately waved her hand. With a swoosh, she drew a spiritual energy map of the Saint Monarch's tomb in the air. "Where is it?" She looked at Little Pig and asked. "Here." Little Pig raised his chubby round and pink hoof and pointed at the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb. "It's here?" Luo Qingtong looked at the place where the Little Pig's hoof was pointing at and raised her eyebrows. It was not because of anything else, but because this place was the red that she saw on the light map on her jade ring. What a coincidence. A mysterious place, barrier's power. Luo Qingtong was a little curious about what was inside. Let's go. Let's go. Luo Qingtong flicked away the map of the Saint Monarch's tomb and hugged Little Pig in her arms. In an instant, his entire body leapt up. His feet heavily stomped on the wall, and his entire body rushed forward at a high speed. Just as she was about to leap into the air with Little Pig in her arms, a powerful attack came crashing down on the spot where she was standing just a moment ago. Yi Jiao, Patriarch Hua, who was battered and battered by the traps, furiously chased after Yi Jiao. The place where Luo Qingtong was just standing, the attack was launched by him. He must kill this bastard. The Hua family head was mad with anger. He stared at Luo Qingtong's figure and chased after her. He wanted to see how many traps Luo Qingtong could activate in these tunnels. When all the traps' attacks were all destroyed, he wanted Jiao's death. She's to die a miserable death. While Patriarch Hui chased after Luo Qingtong, in another tunnel, Feng Wuan and the others were looking at the dragon snapping stone in front of them with ugly expressions. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Feng Wuan couldn't remember how many times he had gritted his teeth and shouted this name in his heart. The other party was too hateful. Chapter 1481. Master, what should I do? She desperately screamed in her heart, afraid that she would really die here. No, she couldn't die. There were still many things she had to do. She had to wash away the humiliation that Luo Qingtong and evil Dr. Ghost I had inflicted on her. She had to become the most honorable woman in the world. She had to become the person of destiny that her master spoke of. She absolutely could not die. Master, save me. Shut up. Following Feng Wuan's words, the blue smoke's voice also impressively resounded in her heart. That wisp of green smoke was also very depressed and angry. It had originally chosen Feng Wuan because the color of her strange pupils was extremely high. In the future, it was extremely likely that she would be able to compete for the position of the person of destiny. In addition, her talent and strength were not weak, and her temperament was tough and ruthless enough. Thus, it wanted to train her. It thought that under its guidance, Feng Wuan would be able to quickly reach the peak of the Sky Spill continent and become the most powerful genius. But it didn't expect that evil Dr. Ghost Eye would appear and suppress it in every aspect. This would put it in an even more desperate situation. Not to mention Feng Wuan, even the blue smoke felt as if it had been slapped in the face. It had lost all face. It angrily shouted, "Open up your mind." Yes. Feng Wuan quickly responded and opened up her mind. With a schwa sound, her eyes glazed over for a moment. Then, the look in her eyes changed, becoming abnormally cold and indifferent. It was as if she was looking down on all living beings as ants. Humph! The blue smoke coldly snorted. After taking control of Feng Wuan's body, it fiercely turned around and rushed towards the spiritual energy storm that was violently attacking from behind. Behind them, the Ouyang family head and the Ouyang family's powerhouses were busy resisting the attack of the spiritual energy storm. However, this passage was specially chosen for them by Luo Qingtong. Of the 12 passages, it was the most dangerous, had the most traps, and was also the most powerful. The attacks of the Ouyang family head and the others were all absorbed by the barrier outside the spiritual energy storm. Not only did it not damage the spiritual energy storm ball in the slightest, it even increased its power. Now, the bulging sphere had almost blocked the entire passage. There was no room for them to dodge. Seeing the huge spiritual energy storm getting closer and closer, Ouyang family head and the others felt despair in their hearts. Bastard! Yijio! I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. Ouyang family head was so angry that his eyes bulged. The blue veins on his forehead bulged like earthworms. He looked as scary as a ghost. Right at this moment, Feng Yuan's figure appeared by his side. Scram! When Ouyang family head saw her, he instantly flew into a rage and directly slapped Feng Yuan. If it wasn't for him, how would they have inexplicably offended Yijio? What kind of plan was this? Now they couldn't even enter the sage monarch's tomb. They were going to die here. If the other party had been more tolerant back then, he wouldn't have made things difficult for Yijio before this. They wouldn't have ended up like this. The Ouyang family head flew into a rage. That slap carried the might of thunder. If it was the previous Feng Yuan, he would definitely be sent flying by this slap. He might even die on the spot. After all, the strength of the patriarchs of the top families was at the sage realm. The strength of the Ouyang family head was one of the best among them. He was already very close to the sage master realm. Chapter 1482. However, it was the green smoke that was controlling Feng Yuan's body at this moment. He looked coldly at the Ouyang family head slap and raised his hand to block it. Bang! With a backhand move, he blasted the Ouyang family head 2 steps back. The Ouyang family head and the group of experts beside him all looked at Feng Yuan in shock. How did his strength suddenly become so powerful? The Ouyang family head and the others were shocked, But the green smoke did not care at all. He looked coldly at the huge spiritual energy storm ball rolling over, and said coldly, "Let's attack together and destroy it." His strength had been severely damaged, and he had been resting in Feng Wan's body to recover. Even if he forced himself to come out now, there was no way he could completely break the barrier outside the spiritual energy storm. The Ouyang family head and the others came back to their senses when they heard this. No, the Ouyang family head's face was gloomy and he said coldly, "We just tried. Even if we attack with all our strength, the barrier will not budge." Feng Wan's strength suddenly became very powerful, but even so, if they joined forces, they might not be able to break the barrier outside the spiritual energy storm. Judging from the strength they had just used, only the strength of a holy king and above, close to the strength of a venerable realm expert, could break the barrier of the spiritual energy storm, attack the core, and destroy the spiritual energy storm. On their side, even Feng Wan, whose strength had suddenly skyrocketed, did not have the ability to do so. I don't need it." The green smoke's voice was cold. In the next second, he waved his hand fiercely. With a swoosh, screams sounded. The people of the Hua family who were originally blocking the entrance of the passage and crying were suddenly pulled over. In the next second, they were thrown toward the spiritual energy storm. Explode! As the voice of the green smoke sounded, the bodies of all the Hua family members who had been thrown into the spiritual energy storm ball instantly swelled up violently, and then exploded. Bang bang bang. No one knew what the green smoke did in their bodies, but the power of the combined explosion of the Hua clan's disciples was so great that the barrier outside the spirit energy storm shook violently. Attack! As the cold voice of the green smoke rang out, the Ouyang family head and the rest of the people who were stunned instantly came back to their senses, and hurriedly attacked the huge spiritual energy storm ball. Because Qing Yan's next words were, "If you can't break this spiritual energy storm ball, then continue." The rest of the Hua clan's people were all trembling. They quickly followed the Ouyang clan's people, and attacked the huge spiritual energy storm ball crazily. They were afraid that if they couldn't break the barrier of the spiritual energy storm ball, they would end up like those people in front of them. The crowd attacked madly. Rumble! Under their attacks, the speed of the spiritual energy storm ball slowed down. The light of the barrier outside was also gradually weakening. Bang bang bang. The green smoke's eyes were cold. Without hesitation, he pulled up another group of Hua clan's disciples, and threw them toward the spiritual energy storm ball. This time, the light of the barrier finally dimmed. Bang! Chapter 1483. Let's go. The green smoke's voice was cold. He pulled his hand out of the huge spiritual energy storm ball, and dispersed the spiritual energy in it. Then, he led everyone into the depths of the tunnel. Every time he reached a place, he threw the surviving members of the Hua family to the front, and allowed them to detonate the traps and clear the path ahead. His cruel and ruthless methods made the people of the Ouyang family shudder with fear. Even the Ouyang family head and other strong people of the Ouyang family couldn't help but shudder when they saw his methods. The other party's methods were a little too ruthless. However, in the current situation, this was indeed the fastest and safest way to get through this wrong tunnel. These people of the Hua family shouldn't blame them. If they wanted to blame someone, blame Yijio. She was the one who caused them to die here. It had nothing to do with them. When you see the Hua family head, you know what to say, right? The Ouyang family had looked at the people of the Ouyang family beside him and asked. Yes, the people of the Ouyang family nodded. It was Yijio's plan that caused the deaths of the Hua family. Our Ouyang family also suffered heavy losses and couldn't save them. The people of the Ouyang family naturally knew the intention of the Ouyang family head's question. They definitely couldn't let the Hua family head know that they used the Hua family to scout the way to their deaths. The best way was to put all the blame on Luo Qingtong. Anyway, it was indeed because of her that they were trapped in this wrong tunnel. It wouldn't be wrong to say that she caused the deaths of the Hua family. Good. Very good. The Ouyang family head smiled sinisterly. Yijio, just you wait. When I get out of here, I will make sure you die a horrible death. While the Ouyang family head was venting his anger, Luo Qingtong had already led the Hua family head to a place not far from the red. This is the place? Luo Qingtong looked at the straight tunnel in front of her. At the end of the passageway was a tightly shut bronze door. The dark mottled door looked very old. A faintly discernible aura of the vast expanse emanated from it. This was the location of the red dot marked on the jade ring. At the same time, Little Pig sensed the source of the special spirit formation that enveloped the tomb. The bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes swept around. Her eyes reflected the three-dimensional shape of the straight passage. As far as his visual technique could see, he did not see any formations or mechanisms. This passageway, which was about 100 meters long, was empty. It was unlike the passageways that Luo Qingtong had passed through before, which had hidden mechanisms. This passageway was unusually clean. Statues of ferocious beasts stood all around, squatting on both sides of the passage. The statues of the ferocious beasts were about the height of a person. Their faces were ferocious and ferocious. They were placed all the way to the entrance of the bronze gate. It looked like they were guarding something. It was a magnificent sight. But there wasn't a single hidden passage. Luo Qingtong looked at this incomparably clean passageway, then looked at the end of the passageway where there was no other path except for a large door. Her brows slightly furrowed. Without any mechanisms, what would the Hua family head behind her do? There was no obstruction in this 100-meter passageway. It was enough for him to catch up to her. And there was no other path at the end of the passageway. Luo Qingtong's brows were tightly knitted. Chapter 1484. Suddenly, there was a violent commotion behind her. Haha. Yi Jiu, you can't escape, right? Family head Hua appeared at the end of the tunnel behind Luo Qingtong with a ferocious expression. He saw that there was only one path in front of Luo Qingtong. And after that path, there was only one door. There was no other path. He immediately started laughing maniacally. His expression was extremely ferocious. He endured the attacks from the traps and rushed toward Luo Qingtong like a wild beast. He wanted Luo Qingtong dead. Sensing the commotion behind her, Luo Qingtong's brows furrowed even tighter. At this moment, her eyes suddenly narrowed. She fixed her gaze on the ferocious beast statues. These statues, Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed slightly. Just as she was about to take a closer look, Little Pig's voice rang in her mind at this moment. Charge! Hearing Little Pig's words, Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed. She didn't ask anything and directly dashed forward. Rumble! As Luo Qingtong dashed forward, Family Head Hua's figure also appeared not far behind her. He directly launched an attack at her. It just so happened that it brushed past Luo Qingtong. Bang! The attack fiercely smashed into the wall behind Luo Qingtong, shaking the entire tunnel. In the next second, Family Head Hua's figure caught up. Yi Jiu, don't run if you dare. His voice was thunderous as he chased after the young man who was flying in front of him. There was no path ahead. Luo Qingtong was seeking her own death. Let's see where she can run to now. When I catch her, I'll definitely skin her alive to vent the hatred in my heart. Luo Qingtong's figure flashed rapidly. Almost at the instant Family Head Hua launched his attack, she had already dashed forward several meters. But Family Head Hua's figure was also very fast. Without the obstruction of the secret passageway, he instantly accelerated after dashing into the tunnel. His saint-level strength allowed him to catch up to Luo Qingtong in an instant. Bastard! Let's see how you'll die. Family Head Hua's expression was sinister as he looked at the youth's figure that was almost within reach. He raised his hand and raised one of his palms. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth rumbled violently and gathered above his palm. Boundless, violent and vast energy surrounded his palm, constantly pulsing and surging. The energy within it was extremely vigorous and powerful. With the Hua family head's strength, there was no way forward, and there were no obstacles in the way. The power of his palm was enough to block the entire passage. At that time, Luo Qingtong would no longer be able to escape. And Luo Qingtong's figure was half a distance and Luo Qingtong's was Hua. It was absolutely impossible in a short time. As Luo Qingtong's voice rang out, Little Pig's voice also sounded anxiously. Okay. 4 symbols of heaven and earth, universe black and yellow. Little Pig meditated seriously in Luo Qingtong's arms. One of Little Pig's 2 front hooves was facing up, the other was facing down. Then he suddenly formed an extremely complicated and mysterious mark in front of Little Pig's chubby, round belly. In the name of the supreme of all beasts, your souls rise. Chapter 1485. Following Little Pig's voice, in an instant boom, 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 boom. Around Luo Qingtong and the Hua family's patriarch, the rows of ferocious beast statues that were squatting on both sides of the passageway cracked open. The layers of soil on their bodies receded, revealing their true forms. It turned out that these statues were all real ferocious beasts. However, it was sealed here by a special power and turned into a statue. Now that they were awakened by Little Pig, they immediately came back to life. Roar! Those ferocious beasts suddenly roared toward the sky, their roars shaking the heavens. Naturally, the ferocious beasts that were captured and sealed here were not weak. These ferocious beasts were all at the saint rank. As soon as they woke up, they immediately pounced toward Luo Qingtong and the others. To be precise, they pounced toward the Hua family's patriarch behind her. What? The Hua family's patriarch was shocked when he saw these ferocious beast statues that suddenly woke up and felt the vast power coming from them. What's going on? How did these ferocious beast statues wake up so quickly? He didn't have time to think too much and directly sent a palm strike toward a saint-rank ferocious beast that was pouncing toward him. Bang! The saint-rank ferocious beast was sent flying by the powerful force contained in his palm. However, even more ferocious beasts arrived in front of him. There were no less than 100 ferocious beast statues in this passageway. Under Little Pig's command, they all rushed toward the Hua family's patriarch. Boom! Boom! The Hua family's patriarch's figure was instantly blocked by a pile of ferocious beasts. At the same time, Little Pig hurriedly urged Luo Qingtong, "Quick! Let's go through that bronze door." He used the supreme pressure in his soul to awaken these sealed ferocious beasts. However, the truth was that those ferocious beasts were all sealed there to guard the bronze gate. Why were there no traps in this passageway? It was because these ferocious beast statues were guarding it. Little Pig temporarily summoned the souls of these ferocious beasts and made them listen to his commands. However, most of his power was sealed, so he could only use a little of it. These ferocious beasts could only listen to it for a limited time. Luo Qingtong had to enter the bronze gate as soon as possible. This was to prevent the souls of these ferocious beasts from once again obeying the power of the seal after leaving. At that time, Luo Qingtong would also suffer together with Patriarch Hua. Got it. Luo Qingtong had already noticed the strangeness of these ferocious beast statues. Therefore, when Little Pig told her to charge forward, she didn't have any doubts or hesitation. As soon as Little Pig finished speaking, she had already dashed to the bronze door, pulled it open and rushed in. Buzz! When Luo Qingtong pulled on the door, the figures of the ferocious beast statues suddenly paused, the red light in their eyes flashing fiercely. But in the next second, they were suppressed by their spiritual intelligence, and once again roared and rushed towards the Hua family's patriarch, who was surrounded by them. After Luo Qingtong rushed through the bronze door, she looked up and saw a huge room. The room's furnishings were extremely luxurious and gorgeous. Countless vines wrapped around the room's walls, pillars, making it look extremely magnificent. At this time, Luo Qingtong's gaze swept over a place in front of her. Her pupils instantly shrank. Since you're able to pass through all the obstacles and reach here as a martial ancestor, you're qualified to inherit my strength and cultivation. Although my strength has been greatly weakened after 1,000 years, the remaining strength is enough to raise your strength and cultivation to the saint realm. Come on up. My successor will inherit my life's glory and my legacy. I will continue to spread my glory and glory. Chapter 1487. In the blink of an eye, traces of the crisscrossing spiritual chi around the huge purple-gold coffin were immediately revealed. Then it retreated to the sides, revealing a passage that led straight to the giant purple-gold coffin. Inheritance. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. She looked at the figure floating above the purple-gold coffin, and the corners of her lips suddenly curled up. There was an indescribable meaning in her smile. Okay. She nodded at the figure and said, "Then I thank you for your selflessness. What do I need to do?" As she spoke, she walked all the way to the giant purple-gold coffin. Looking at it up close, the corpse looked even more lifelike, as if it could open its eyes and wake up at any time. 1,000-year-old corpse, immortal and undecayed. All the strength condensed into one body. Was this the power of a saint king? Was this the power of a saint realm expert? Then, how powerful would the supremacy realm and supremacy realm experts be? For some reason, Luo Qingtong inexplicably thought of Yi Qianxian. That man had the heavenly vein body. She did not know how powerful his true strength was. However, Luo Qingtong had a vague feeling that the other party's strength was above the monarch realm. She did not know what level of strength he was at. She still had a long way to go. But it did not matter. Being reborn was only interesting like this, wasn't it? It was rare for her to meet such a man in such a world that she could not reach. The battle intent in her heart was very excited. One day, she would stand at the top of the world's strength, reach out to that man, and tell him that he was hers. Luo Qingtong's lips curled slightly, then she looked up at the figure floating above the giant purple-gold coffin. The latter's face was faintly excited. "You just need to pick up the glazed lamp that my corpse is holding." As he spoke, he raised his finger and pointed at the giant purple-gold coffin below him. "All of my strength has been sealed in this lamp in order to reduce the consumption of my strength as much as possible, waiting for an inheritor like you to appear. As long as you pick up this glazed lamp, all of my experience, power, and comprehension will be transferred to you. At that time, you'll be able to become a saint stage expert. Moreover, the power I possess will allow you to advance from the saint stage to the saint king stage without any bottlenecks in the future. Come on up. My successor. Obtain my power. One step ascending to heaven." That figure's voice was filled with arrogance. Luo Qingtong's eyes swept over, following his words to look inside the giant purple-gold coffin. Sure enough, under the two sleeves of the corpse, she saw a glass jade lamp. That glass jade lamp was covered by his sleeves, and it was shrouded by the power of a Saint King expert. If it were not for him, Luo Qingtong might not have discovered it. The color of this glass jade lamp was very beautiful. The whole body was made of glass, and the entire wick seemed to be transparent, flickering with a faint white light. The lampshade outside was in the shape of a lotus. Against the white wick, this glass jade lamp seemed to be unusually holy and bright, as if it was shrouded in a layer of invisible light. This is it. Luo Qingtong looked at this glass jade lamp. Her eyes flashed slightly and she raised her hand to pick it up. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.